Good morning, Judge. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Let me call this case.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Let me call this case. All right, calling Javier Corral Jurado versus Paso del Norte Publishing, Inc. and Publicaciones e Impresos Paso del Norte S de R. L, is that an L? L de CB. Cause number 2020 DCV 0919. We're here on a special appearance. Let's have announcements from the parties. First, the plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Francisco Ortega for plaintiff Javier Corral Jurado. For the record, Mr. Jurado was subpoenaed and he is in attendance today.
Okay.
Harold Davis for the defendants, Your Honor. With me is Cynthia Canales, who's helping me, and then my client Osvaldo Burunda Jimenez.
Osvaldo Rodriguez.
Yes. Right. For the representing the defendants today.
Okay. Yes.
This is Annalise. I don't mean to interrupt. We do have an interpreter. Ms. Canales did request her. I'm not sure who she is supposed to be interpreting for, so she can let us know.
Actually, for both of the witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Then I have an interpreter, Lynette Garza. Ms. Garza, you work for the County of El Paso?
Yes, Judge.
You've been doing this 1,000 times, right?
About.
Okay, good morning to you, man.
Good morning, Judge.
All right. Special appearance, Mr. Davis, you have the floor.
Okay, Your Honor, to start off with my opening, only two of the defendants have filed special appearances. That's Publicaciones y Impresos Paso del Norte and Publicaciones Paso del Norte. For short, I will call Publicaciones either Publicaciones PEI, which is what we do internally, or Juarez. That's the entity that prints and circulates the Juarez paper.
Okay.
Publicaciones is PPDN, Publicaciones Paso del Norte. That is the entity that owns the website that is the subject of the lawsuit. Okay, it doesn't do any print paper. There are some other entities that in timeframes that we need to talk about, Your Honor, because if you look through the exhibits and the pleadings, Mr. Corral's made a valiant effort to try to confuse the entities and the timeframes in order to try to show jurisdiction. And if you look at the entities that are actually before the court and the things that they have done, the two entities that have filed the special appearance, you'll come to the conclusion that there is neither general nor specific jurisdiction. I will also point out to the court that all three defendants have filed a motion to dismiss for nonconvenience, and the two entities before the court today have filed a motion to determine which law applies to the claims against them, which we can set later depending on the results of this hearing. Okay. So let's go over some of the issues that get to be kind of confusing. I'll give you an example and then go through the clarification. For an example, there's a couple of exhibits here which the plaintiff has inserted to reflect that El Diario de Juarez did things in Texas. Well, that's interesting, but those things that the lawsuits are talking about were 2004 lawsuits, okay? And at that time, the entity PPDN, which hosts the website, actually sold papers directly from Juarez to Texas. However, in April of 2005, Paso del Norte Publishing, Inc. formed and created El Diario de El Paso. And it is the entity that publishes and circulates the newspaper in El Paso. In 2010, December 2010, Publicaciones y Impresos, PEI, was formed in Mexico. At that point in time, it took over the printing, publication, and circulation of El Diario de Juarez in Mexico. They also have newspapers in Chihuahua and other cities, but those are the ones that are at issue today. So before 2005 for El Paso and before 2010 for PEI, anything that another entity did is irrelevant for jurisdiction for today's hearing. Also, Your Honor, the case law is clear that acts that took place after the claim that is the subject of today's lawsuit don't give rise to jurisdiction. So if an entity doesn't do business in Texas when it was sued or when the claim arose, but a year later decided to do business in Texas, that's irrelevant for jurisdiction purposes. Okay. The two entities that do the newspaper, Paso del Norte Publishing and PEI, are separate. They have some similar ownership, but they don't share a bank account, they don't share reporters, they don't share editors, they don't share offices, they don't share employees. And when you get to the list of items that a court looks at to see whether or not an entity does business in Texas, PEI had, and there's like 13 or 14, PEI has one, and that is it has a bank account in El Paso whose sole purpose is for receiving payments from the El Paso paper for the printing it does, and the El Paso paper actually in Juarez sells it print material, the actual papers. PEI or PPDN, the website, neither have a Texas office, no Texas phone number, no employees, and no contracts performable in whole or in part here in Texas. The plaintiff would have you believe that El Diario de Juarez, PEI, is doing business in Texas. Quite frankly, Your Honor, it's the opposite that's true. It's sort of like a maquila operation. PDN, the El Paso paper, goes to Mexico to get its paper printed because it's cheaper. They used to print it here. They had their own printing department. But they go there now, it's cheaper. The court's aware that print material all throughout the country is going down. At the time this lawsuit was filed, the plaintiff alleged that there were 7,000 papers circulated in El Paso a day. It's about 3,000 today. I don't know if the court read in the paper the other day, Gannett, which includes the El Paso Times, is going to cease putting out a Saturday paper. Just everybody's cutting back. So what you see is entities, PEI, PDN, the El Paso entity, going to Juarez, not the reverse. For example, you'll see the entertainment insert called Vamos, where there's advertising. Well, all of the advertising in Vamos is from El Paso, there's a car dealership, El Paso restaurants advertising in Mexico. It's not Mexico coming to here advertising, and those El Paso restaurants aren't using Vamos to advertise to El Paso residents. They're advertising for that much larger Mexican market for them to come to El Paso, and they're going to Juarez to do their advertising there. Juarez isn't coming to them. El Pasoans can't subscribe to get the Juarez paper. All they can subscribe to get is the El Paso paper. Similar for True is Juarez citizens can't subscribe to get the El Paso paper. They can only get the Juarez paper. Same thing for advertising. If you're those restaurants that want to advertise in Mexico, you can't go to Juarez and do it. You have to go to the El Paso paper. So they keep it completely separate, and they keep the country separate. The only thing that we have between these entities is the sale of paper and the contract, which is Exhibit 1 of the plaintiffs, for PEI to print the newspaper, the El Paso paper for them. So the El Paso paper gets printed, the Juarez paper gets printed, El Paso pays them for it. It's billed monthly. And the El Paso paper consists of the front section, which is El Paso, and the back section, which is El Diario de Juarez. But it is the El Paso paper that's being sold, and as part of that paper, you're getting a copy of Juarez. So when it comes to, and we'll talk about this in the jurisdictional issue, when it comes about defamation, Juarez printed a paper. If the prior governor believed that it was defamatory in Mexico, he could have sued El Diario de Juarez, PEI, in Mexico. Instead, he wanted to sue him over here, but Juarez doesn't bring the paper over here. It doesn't ship the paper over here. This entity, which has, if the articles are defamatory, has republication liability. It went and got the paper and brought it over here. So you don't even have a stream of commerce case in that event. So you take those facts and you look at the applicable case law. You have to deal with the Texas long arm statute and the federal due process requirements. The long arm statute says you do business in Texas if you, one, recruit Texas residents, which they do not do. You have a contract with a Texas residence that's performable in Texas. There's none of those. And you, that would be PEI or PPDN, committed its tort in Texas. Now, PPDN, the website, it's a website case, and we'll get to that argument. It has no employees, no bank account, nothing. It is just it's a passive website under the law. It doesn't sell anything. It doesn't buy anything. It doesn't get any money. If a El Paso person, you can subscribe by going to that website, Diario MS, but you can't get your subscription from that website. And by that, I mean, if someone from El Paso wants to get the El Paso paper, they would hit subscribe, and then they would be directed to El Diario de El Paso, Paso del Norte Publishing, to get a subscription from it directly. The same would be true from a Juarez resident. And again, as I said, neither resident can get the other paper from the other entity. El Paso can't get Juarez directly in El Paso. Okay. So you don't meet the Texas long arm statute, and then you don't meet the standards under due process that both Texas and federal courts have brought forth. For an example, first issue is, well, general jurisdiction. General jurisdiction, this is the SPIR, S-P-I-R, S-T-A-R case cited in both briefs. Say that, well, that's not the one I want to use for that. Okay, now we're going to use the ball up case for that. So the first one is the general jurisdiction, and that is the general jurisdiction is an entity where the jurisdiction is fairly regarded as their home, such as its place of incorporation or principal place of business. That's not what we have here with either PEI or PPDN. Okay. Then for specific jurisdiction, the court only has jurisdiction if the suit arises out of the defendant's conduct with the forum state. Okay, i.e., El Diario would have had to commit the tort in Texas, and it did not. It published and printed a paper in Mexico. The case law, if you look at the Daimler case we cited and the Michiana case, which is also cited, jurisdiction is only decided by the defendant's own conduct, not by a third party's conduct, not by a subsidiary's conduct, by its own conduct. These entities did nothing in Texas. Now, the tort has to be, as I said, based upon the conduct in the state. The best case I had for that is called the Utah case, Mickey Mock case also cited. In that case, a Utah outfitter advertised in Texas for people to come to Utah and do outdoor activities. Texas resident went up there, whitewater rafted and was killed. They filed suit in Texas, and the court said no jurisdiction, even though they advertised and did business for specific jurisdiction. The tort took place in Utah, and therefore Utah was the proper location for the lawsuit. The plaintiff has cited some defamation cases which seem to say that, well, you can file suit anywhere the article is published. Well, it's not exactly what they say, and it's not exactly falls under the fairness if it wasn't intended for that purpose. But if you look at the cases, the Hustler case and the Taviasteca case, which is, I think, the best one, jurisdiction was granted because the plaintiff was harmed in the other state. Taviasteca is a long opinion by the Supreme Court not that long ago. And there, a Mexican broadcaster broadcast articles about a famous singer who was residing in Texas, knowing that those broadcasts would go into Texas. In there, that it was clear in the opinion that the TV station was trying to serve the Texas market by those broadcasts, knowing it would go in there, and that she resided there. Well, Juarez is serving this market, El Paso is serving this market. We don't have that. So the other issue there is when serving the market, you got an issue with regards to Mr. Corral himself. The reason that these cases come up for jurisdiction outside the state of the entity that did the work, I mean, that did the action, is Texas has, all states have an interest in taking care of torts that take place in the state against residents of their state, okay? And the Keaton case, which is the Hustler case we mentioned, and Moncrief Oil, which I cited in Spur Star, all say that that defend in this in Moncrief saying the allegations that the defendants committed a tort in Texas against a resident implicate a serious state interest in adjudicating the dispute. Spur Star, Texas has a significant interest in exercising jurisdiction over controversies arising from injuries a Texas resident sustains. And the U.S. Supreme Court states, because the plaintiff is not a California resident, California's legitimate interests in the dispute have considerably diminished. Well, in this case, the governor was not a resident of Texas at the time, couldn't be. He was a resident of Juarez. In fact, these lawsuits are all about his house, his residence in Juarez. In his petition, he does not say he's a resident, does not say he's a citizen. All he says is that he was born in El Paso, which is something that we need to address at some point. Under Mexican law, he couldn't have dual citizenship and be the governor. So under Mexican law, unless he's violated that law, he's not a U.S. citizen, he's not a U.S. resident, and therefore the state has no interest in that, in this lawsuit, okay? PPDN is a little bit different because it's a website, and the case law for websites is different. There's 3 categories of internet activity: websites used for transacting business, passive websites used for advertising, and interactive websites, okay? In this case, we have a passive website because the entity PPDN doesn't sell anything, doesn't bill anything, doesn't have a bank account, doesn't make money. It doesn't advertise for itself. All it does is host whatever Juarez puts on it, okay? So if it's passive, with the case law says it's passive, that is, it's used only to provide contact information or to advertise. That's insufficient to establish minimum contacts, even if the website's accessible to Texas residents. And on page 4, I think page 5 of the response I filed, I cite the cases for that. As I said earlier, in this case, that website, all it does is direct you to the appropriate entity to buy to subscribe either to the El Paso or the Mexican paper. In July of last year, on 5/20, sorry, I've lost years, the Dallas Court of Appeals in a case called Shop Style versus Reward Style came to that same conclusion, saying that, look, this company whose website involved the use of hyperlinks that took viewers to the websites of third-party affiliated retailers, that's not enough to get jurisdiction in Texas. So those are the facts, Your Honor. That's the case law that applies. The actions of PPDN, which seems to form the basis of the plaintiff's jurisdictional argument that took place years before PEI and Paso del Norte, El Paso were formed, are totally irrelevant and do not give rise to the jurisdiction of this court. And with that, I will pass the podium to Mr. Ortega. Unless the court has questions.
Mr. Ortega?
May I share my screen?
Yes.
Your Honor, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, just as a refresher to follow up on what Mr. Davis said, the Texas long arm statute, as the court knows, allows courts to exercise personal jurisdiction over a non-resident who commits a tort in whole or in part in this state. The defendants take the position that presumably they did not commit a tort in El Paso County. That is not true. They have admitted in their opening statement that El Diario de Juarez is circulated and distributed in El Paso County. They argue, nevertheless, that that circulation and distribution is presumably caused by El Diario del Paso going to El Diario de Juarez to purchase the newspaper. However, they do admit that that newspaper is brought back to El Paso and it is made available to Texas residents. If you go to a convenience store, a gas station, or any other store in El Paso County, you are more likely than not to find El Diario de Juarez sold and circulated jointly with El Diario del Paso. They are sold and advertised as one newspaper. If the newspaper is circulated, distributed, and sold in El Paso County, as is the case in this case, then that goes to show the court that the defamation of the defendants to the plaintiff is actually a tort that happened in whole or in part in this state. That comports with the Texas long arm statute. Consisting with federal due process, a state court can exercise jurisdiction over a non-resident if there are minimum contacts and the exercise of jurisdiction comports with traditional notions of fair play. The court knows that there are two different types of jurisdiction, general and specific jurisdiction. Specific jurisdiction is not necessarily something that is caused by isolated or sporadic events or contacts. It is something that must arise from continuous and systematic contacts, but only if the plaintiff's cause of action arises from or relates to those contacts. What we're arguing in this case is that the circulation, distribution, and sale of El Diario de Juarez in El Paso actually causes the injury, the tort that Mr. Corral is complaining about in this case.
How so? How so?
If El Diario de Juarez was not circulated, sold, or distributed in El Paso County, the defamatory articles that we're complaining about in this case would not be necessarily an injury that would arise in El Paso County. But as the evidence will show in this case, and what we expect the witnesses will testify under oath, is that El Diario de Juarez and even the articles that we're complaining about in this case were sold, circulated, and distributed in El Paso County. The circulation, distribution, and sale of El Diario de Juarez in El Paso is not something that's isolated. It's not random. It is not fortuitous. It is something systematic and continuous that El Diario de Juarez and El Diario del Paso have done to ensure that El Diario de Juarez reaches El Paso readers. It is a business for them. They've made a substantial amount of money since 1982 when El Diario de Juarez opened its first circulation and sales office in El Paso County. We expect that the testimony you'll hear under oath is that since 1982, one way or the other, El Diario de Juarez has been sold, circulated, and distributed in El Paso County. Now, they'll argue that it's different entities or somehow the contractual setup between these entities has changed throughout the years. The evidence will show that it is essentially the same companies that have the same or similar shareholders, directors, officers, employees. The evidence will also show that these two newspapers, as I indicated before, operate as one diario. In other words, they operate as one newspaper. In conducting the analysis, the court must assess the quality and nature of the contacts, not the quantity, just the quality of the and nature of the contacts. This case is akin to stream of commerce cases in which courts determine whether a seller's placement of its product into the stream of commerce constitutes minimum contacts when the product travels into and causes harm in the forum state. In those cases, the seller's awareness that the stream of commerce may or will sweep the product into the forum state is not enough. And additional conduct must indicate an intent or purpose to serve the market in the forum state. Examples of that additional conduct in stream of commerce cases indicate whether a defendant purposefully availed itself of a particular forum include advertising in the forum state, establishing channels of regular communication to customers, designing the product for the market in the forum state, and marketing the product through a distributor who has agreed to serve as the sales agent in the forum state. That is the kind of additional conduct that indicates an intent or purpose to serve the market in the forum state. Now, you heard from Mr. Davis state that El Diario del Paso purchases El Diario de Juarez. You didn't hear from him whether El Diario de Juarez sells to any other distributors or entities in the state of Texas. It sounds to me, based on what we've heard from Mr. Davis, that El Diario de Juarez has established itself a channels of regular communication to customers through El Diario del Paso. It sounds to me that they have designed the product and have marketed their product through a sole distributor, which is El Diario del Paso. They have a contract between themselves that allows each one of them, when one contracts with a third party, they have the ability to bind and act as an agent for the other newspaper. There's a contract that you will see that presumably was signed between El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez on or about January 1, 2018, that specifically shows that. We will show you, Judge, that there are contracts, for example, contracts with EPCC and UTEP for advertising, where all of these newspapers are essentially contracting with Texas residents for publicity. Now, El Diario de Juarez was founded in 1976 by Osvaldo Rodriguez Burunda, and he has been the general director ever since. What you see on your screen is a snippet from the website diario.mx, which is Diario Digital. At the bottom, you could see that the newspaper states that it has, or started at least, with a modest circulation, but after 2 years, it solidified itself as the journalistic leader, not only in Ciudad Juarez, but in the Chihuahua state landscape and the Southwest of Texas. This is from their own website, and it shows you from their own words that they circulate and sell and distribute their newspaper in Southwest Texas. They consider themselves a journalistic leader in our community. It goes on to say that the company that issues these printed newspapers total a daily run above the 200,000 copies in the state of Chihuahua and El Paso, Texas. If you look at the website diariousa.com, which is affiliated with Los Diarios, you'll see that they talk about the history of El Diario. Now, when you hear El Diario, it's talking about a collective of newspapers. They treat themselves as editions, as separate locations, but it's essentially one diario. The history of El Diario shows that in 1982, El Diario de Juarez entered into the El Paso business community. It started, as I'm sure you'll hear from the witnesses, as a sales and circulation office in this city. In 1999, the newspapers changed the name and banner from El Diario de Juarez and El Diario de Chihuahua to El Diario, which is essentially what I indicated to the court before, that El Diario is a conglomerate of different newspapers in different locations. They did so, it says here, to better serve the readers in the state of Chihuahua and in El Paso. The Juarez edition of El Diario, which publishes a daily edition for Nuevo Casas Grandes, also produces an El Paso edition of El Diario. This is the information that you could find in diariousa.com. That is the domain name that is used by El Diario del Paso. This is the information that they publish in their website. So I understand that the defendants say that they don't circulate, sell, or market their newspaper here, but you could see that they are specifically targeting Texas readers because they're publishing an El Paso edition, because they had a circulation and sales office, and because these sales have been continuous and systematic with the specific intent and purpose to reach El Paso readers. It is a business for them. That same website shows, as you could see on the screen, that El Diario is the dominant newspaper in the state of Chihuahua, with presumably the largest and most read newspaper in Ciudad Juarez and Chihuahua City. Of note is that that newspaper circulates in Ciudad Juarez, Nuevo Casas Grandes, El Paso, Texas, and Las Cruces, New Mexico. These are not my words. This is not my website. This is defendants' website. They indicate that they circulate in El Paso, Texas. They tout themselves as the Hispanic newspaper in El Paso. This is not El Diario del Paso that they're referring to. Remember, when they say El Diario, they mean El Diario de Juarez. And they refer themselves as the, capital T, Hispanic newspaper for El Paso. In the same website, you could see that they show that they've got editions for El Paso. This is clearly another signal that shows that they are targeting El Paso residents that want to know about the daily events and news in the city. And they are targeting Mexican nationals and other Spanish-speaking individuals that reside in our community. Diario USA also shows, as you could see up on the screen, advertising. And it includes rates for advertising to third parties in our community to purchase advertising or space in El Diario de Juarez and El Diario del Paso. And you could see that they do not include the information for El Diario de Juarez. They include the contact information for El Diario del Paso. Our position is, Judge, and we hope that the court will see as that El Diario de Juarez does have an office in El Paso. It treats El Diario del Paso as an office and a location for them in this state. In fact, as the court could see on the screen, you see from the website diariousa.com, a location for El Diario del Paso, which is 1801 Texas Avenue. And then they include our other locations. If these are two separate newspapers that don't have similar employees, officers, directors, and shareholders, then why would they say that they have other locations in other places and jurisdictions? Clearly, this shows an amalgamation of different factors between these different newspapers. If you were to open Section A of El Diario de Juarez on any given day, Judge, you'll see on the second page of Section A of El Diario de Juarez, the snippet that you see up on your screen. That snippet states, and I understand that it's a little hard to see, hopefully you could see the translations in the boxes below, that this is a publication from El Diario de Juarez. And El Diario de Juarez publishes its location in Ciudad Juarez. It also publishes the information, the different departments for advertising and classified ads in Ciudad Juarez. And it also provides a phone number and an email address for its office in El Paso, Texas. Now, if these were two completely separated newspapers, why would El Diario de Juarez advertise every single day in its newspaper that you could contact the main office or purchase publicity or talk to an editor in El Paso, Texas? More specifically, on the right-hand side of that snippet, you could see just barely that it says in Spanish, oficinas en El Paso, Texas. The translation is here below. On that snippet on the right-hand side, you could see that it claims that it has offices in Delicias, Casas Grandes, Ciudad Juarez, and it says oficinas in El Paso, Texas, meaning that they have offices in El Paso, Texas. The address that they show for their El Paso office is 1801 Texas Avenue, El Paso, Texas, 79901. It also lists that it has a phone number with a 915 area code, which, as the court knows, is an area code in El Paso County. You could also see that El Diario del Paso has documents that show that they circulate and they distribute their newspaper of El Diario de Juarez in El Paso. This is a document that the court could see that shows El Diario de Juarez, and it shows the different distributors that it has. And you could see here in the middle of the screen that it says Oficinas El Paso. That means offices in El Paso. This is coming from El Diario de Juarez, yet the defendants would like for the court to believe that they are, again, two completely separate newspapers with absolutely no affiliation between them in the state of Texas. Now, what I'm showing the court is a sworn affidavit from Osvaldo Rodriguez Borunda, who is the father of Osvaldo Rodriguez Jimenez, who is in attendance here today. Mr. Rodriguez Borunda signed a sworn affidavit in an unrelated case in which he said at the time, and I quote, "I am the president and director general of Publicaciones Paso del Norte, SADCB, which is a Mexican corporation. This corporation publishes the Spanish language newspaper El Diario de Juarez, which is circulated in Juarez and in El Paso." And you could see in his affidavit, to prove my earlier point, that when he refers to El Diario de Juarez, he's talking about El Diario. In that same lawsuit, which was filed by El Diario de Juarez against the Dallas Morning News in El Paso County, El Diario de Juarez alleges in its petition.
Wait, he's calling it El Diario de, wait. Can you? Okay, he's calling it El Diario de Juarez, Your Honor. I would ask that counsel indicate the entity to which he refers, because these things are done, this lawsuit is 2004, which is before this PDN was formed, it's before PEI was formed. And I don't want the court to be confused, which is what they're trying to do, that these defendants did that, okay? And so if he's going to say El Diario Juarez, I would like him to refer to which corporation, which is the defendant or not the defendant, that he's referring to.
Judge, I've got no problem with that, Judge. This is Publicaciones Paso del Norte, SADCB. This is the entity that they claim has no employees, no bank accounts, or no business in the state of Texas. But you could see, and what we're trying to establish here, Judge, is that there's a long line and history of this newspaper with, yes, different companies that came and went. Some of them are still doing business in the state of Texas, but you could see the business and how long El Diario de Juarez has been sold here. In this lawsuit, El Diario de Juarez, which is Publicaciones Paso del Norte, stated that El Diario's current distribution in El Paso has been primarily directed towards the non-English speaking Hispanic population. For more than 2 years, however, El Diario has made efforts to significantly expand its presence in the city of El Paso, including locating to a near downtown site where construction of a new publication facility for an El Paso edition of El Diario will be complete in early 2005. Production and distribution of this new edition will also commence in early 2005. There is currently no significant competition in this particular market segment in El Paso County. This, Judge, again, to show you the long and history presence that El Diario de Juarez, the newspaper. I understand that Mr. Davis wants to distinguish between these different companies, Judge, and we have no problem with that. The point here is that this newspaper has been sold since 1982 in this state. It goes on to say that the plaintiff, Publicaciones Paso del Norte, publishes El Diario, a newspaper distributed in Juarez, Mexico, and in El Paso, Texas. Now, you hear from defendants that El Diario de Juarez has no contracts and that it does no business in the state of Texas. It's not true. What we're showing the court up on the PowerPoint screen is a contract that was entered into between UTEP, the University of Texas at El Paso, and Paso del Norte Publishing, Inc. But you could see that this agreement was made on October 12, 2008, and it includes Diario de Juarez.
2018, not 2008.
2018, that's correct, Judge, I misspoke. It's Diario de Juarez, and you could see that in this agreement between UTEP and Los Diarios, specifically El Diario de Juarez, Vamos, El Paso / Juarez, and Diario Digital, which is Diario.mx, are agreeing to sell publicity to UTEP in the amount of $12,000 for publication. And you could see on the screen how many monthly impressions they'll get in Diario Digital and how much circulation and frequency they'll get in El Diario de Juarez and Vamos. Now, if El Diario de Juarez doesn't do business in the state of Texas, I don't understand how they could presumably contract with UTEP and have UTEP have advertisements published in their newspaper. The same is true between El Paso Community College and Los Diarios. You could see on the screen that this is a contract, and this is just an example, Judge. There's many others that show a contract that allows El Paso Community College to publish certain advertisements with the different diarios. This shows that this was an agreement that was entered into on September 1, 2008, and it includes Paso del Norte.
2018. You said 2008.
I keep misspeaking on the date, Your Honor. My apologies. 2018. Between Paso del Norte Publishing, El Diario del Paso, El Diario de Chihuahua, and El Diario de Juarez. Just like the contract with UTEP, it shows that EPCC will be allowed to publish advertisements in El Diario de Juarez and also in Diario Digital. If Diario Digital does not have employees, how is it able then to contract with EPCC and UTEP for advertisements on its website. If Diario Digital, as you heard from Mr. Davis, doesn't have a bank account, well, where does the revenue from that publication and advertisement go? You could see how El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez, along with Diario Digital, segregate how much money will be charged and received by each entity for their advertisement and publicity services. They don't do it just one newspaper, they separate them. Now, what you could see on the screen, Judge, is a piece of advertisement that was found in a Circle K in El Paso, Texas. This is a newsstand that shows El Diario del Paso plus El Diario de Juárez equals one diario. Again, they will have you believe that presumably El Diario de Juárez is not circulated, distributed, or sold in El Paso County, but they won't be able to explain to you, Judge, credibly, how is it that they even advertise themselves as one solo diario, as just one diario, clearly showing to you that they're trying to purposefully and intentionally target El Paso readers in our community. What I'm showing the court now is a copy of the classified ads for El Diario de Juárez. You could see that the classified ads show an office in different locations in Ciudad Juárez, and they also advertise classified ads in El Paso, Texas.
Hold on, counsel. Please bear with me. Ana Luz,
Yes, Judge.
can you the screen that's on Karina's desk is bigger than the one I've got on my bench, and I'm bending over. I'm struggling, okay? Can you come in the courtroom and use that screen? Because I
Yes,
please,
okay.
bear with me, counsel. Hold on just a second. It's just that I'm using, the county has provided this, smaller laptop that's, it's tiny. And we've got a screen here sitting to my right for the deputy district clerk. And that's much bigger than the one I've got on my bench. And I just, anyway.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Okay. I just couldn't hear you very well. I couldn't see you very well, and I apologize. Now I'm in my office. Okay. All right. Mr. Ortega, where is opposing counsel? Mr. Davis.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I don't see you, but I can.
Y'all, you see if we can start the video here. You stopped the video, says I can't start the video because the host has stopped it. Okay, now there we go.
My apologies, that was on me. I tried to
Yeah.
stop the judge's video.
There we go. Can you see me, counsel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I can see you and hear you much, much better. I was struggling in the courtroom. I mean, I just can't believe why the county won't buy a better computer. I had this tiny little laptop. You know, I think my grandson has a better one than I did in the courtroom. But anyway, and I apologize, Mr. Ortega, and to your clients, and also you, Mr. Davis. Go ahead. Mr.
No need to apologize, Judge. So just to follow up, as I indicated to the court before the break, what the court could see on its screen is the classified ads, or at least the classified heading in the El Diario de Juarez newspaper. And this, as you could see, shows that El Diario de Juarez claims that it has a principal office and some satellite offices in Ciudad Juarez, but it also indicates that it has an office in El Paso, Texas. It lists the 1801 Texas Avenue, El Paso, Texas 79901 address. It lists the phone number with a 915 area code, which, as the court knows, is a area code dedicated for El Paso County. And this is not anything that was published in the 1980s, in the 1990s, or in the early 2000s. The court could see on the screen that this was something that was published in July of 2020. So this is consistent with the way that El Diario de Juarez advertises and actually shows in its own words that they have an office in El Paso, Texas. And more importantly, it goes to show the court, we hope, that it is purposefully and intentionally targeting El Paso readers. There was some discussion earlier this morning about a magazine called Vamos, which the court could see on its screen.
I've seen that in different restaurants where I go buy lunch. I've seen this magazine.
Well, so have I, Judge. And when you purchased El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez, because they are sold as one diario, in some newspapers, I don't know if this is something that's published once a week or once a month, but you could see that Vamos is a magazine that's also included in that newspaper. In fact, the court need not go any further, but look at the title. You could see at the top, it shows Vamos, and on the O in Vamos, you see Juarez/El Paso. You could see also on the spine of the magazine, it's not that legible, but you could slightly make out Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua/El Paso, Texas. Underneath the title Vamos, you also see El Diario. This is a magazine that is prepared, I believe, by El Diario de Juarez. This is a little difficult to see, Judge, and I admit, but in the directory, which is found in the first page of Vamos, you could see Osvaldo Rodriguez Borunda and a lot of the individuals that have leadership positions and roles in El Diario de Juarez, not El Diario del Paso. At the bottom of that page, the court could also see on the right-hand corner, El Diario del Paso and its logo. And it could also see on the bottom left-hand left-hand corner, El Diario de Juarez, and there are there are phone numbers and email addresses for both newspapers. So this is not something that is done by El Diario del Paso, at least not based on what the court is seeing up on its screen, that it specifically references El Diario de Juarez, and it has as a directory the editors of El Diario de Juarez. By way of example, these are, excuse me, some advertisements published in Vamos. This is an advertisement for an event that took place in the Plaza Theater, which, as the court knows, it's located in El Paso County. The court could also see advertising of restaurants and other establishments, which are found in El Paso, Texas. The establishment that you see here on your screen is an establishment that is located in 1831 North Zaragoza in El Paso, Texas. It publishes for Famous Dave's, which is an El Paso establishment. Vamos also publishes advertisements for West Texas Chop House, which is an establishment located in Airway Boulevard in El Paso, Texas. Vamos also publishes for Café Central, which, as the court, I believe, knows, is a restaurant located in downtown El Paso. Vamos also publishes, among other establishments, publications and advertisements for Great American Steakhouse, which, as the court could see on the screen, it shows that it has 2 locations in El Paso County. I talked earlier this morning about UTEP and how UTEP has a contract with Los Diarios for advertisement. Well, here's the proof. Not only did we show the court a contract between Los Diarios and UTEP, but now the court could see an example of what advertisement Los Diarios, along with Vamos, does for UTEP, the flagship university in our city. Another example is what the court could see on the screen, a publication, which is a full-page ad taken out by Borderplex. Borderplex is an organization headquartered in El Paso, and you could see that El Diario de Juarez, through Vamos, publishes and advertises for other events that are taking place in Sunland Park Mall and other locations and establishments located in El Paso County. This is a full-page ad taken out by the Dicpo Dodge Ram and Dicpo Chrysler Jeep dealership. Dicpo Chrysler Jeep has been in El Paso since the 1920s. It's an El Paso establishment, and the court could see that Vamos is publishing an ad for Dicpo. And that is true for many other El Paso businesses, organizations, and institutions. Now, you'll hear that Osvaldo Rodriguez Borunda and Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez are residents of El Paso County. Both, or at least Osvaldo Rodriguez Borunda, is a US citizen. Mr. Rodriguez Borunda is a shareholder for all the Diario entities, including El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez. He is also a director of El Diario del Paso and a president of that newspaper, who, as I've said, lives in El Paso and makes decisions in El Paso. He is the shareholder of Publicaciones e Impresos Paso del Norte, as well as the president of that organization. And in response to requests for admissions, they admit that El Diario de Juarez, without necessarily trying to justify or make any distinctions about any corporate entity, that the El Diario de Juarez circulates in El Paso. They also admit that they have an agreement to sell El Diario de Juarez in the United States. Yet they claim they do no business, but they're contracting with a Texas corporation headquartered in El Paso. They've admitted, without drawing any distinctions among any of the various Diario de Juarez entities that prior to filing this lawsuit, El Diario de Juarez had employees who were residents in El Paso County. They've equally admitted that Diario Digital publishes the content of El Diario de Juarez and El Diario del Paso. They've also admitted that they made formal demand to Governor Corral pursuant to a Texas law, specifically Section 73.056A of the Texas Defamation Mitigation Act, requiring Governor Corral to provide proof and evidence of the falsehood of the articles. Again, they claim that they haven't purposefully availed themselves of the laws and privileges of the state, but they did so even before this lawsuit was even filed. They've admitted, as you heard from Mr. Davis, and as you could see on your screen in responses to requests for admissions, that El Diario de Juarez, again, without drawing any distinction between any of the corporate entities that now Mr. Davis wants to draw, that El Diario de Juarez specifically had at least one bank account in the state of Texas. You could also see the business that this is generating for El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez. These were documents that we received from El Diario del Paso in a very exhaustive document inspection in the offices of Mr. Davis. And you could see in this Excel spreadsheet at the top how they've got the El Paso route for newspaper, the distributors of that newspaper, and in the middle of that document, you see also that they have a route specifically dedicated for the Juarez newspaper. And you could see how much is sold by each distributor and delivered in El Paso County throughout the week. What I'm showing the court is an example of a subscription agreement that El Diario del Paso has with Texas residents. This is just one of many examples that the court could see in the documents that have been attached and incorporated to plaintiff's response to defendant's special appearance. But the court could see that there are, in the subscription agreement, two different tables that would allow Texas-based residents to either obtain a subscription for El Diario del Paso or obtain a subscription for El Diario de Juarez. In fact, you could see that it's probably a much better business venture for El Diario de Juarez to be sold in El Paso because it's sold, at least based on this subscription agreement, 3 times higher for 1 month than what you could buy it, the El Diario del Paso in El Paso County. Now, I understand that you heard argument this morning from Mr. Davis that Diario Digital is merely a passive website with no employees, business, contracts, or accounts. However, it is an interactive website. It does allow El Paso-based residents and institutions to subscribe to receive El Diario de Juarez or El Diario del Paso. In fact, this is a snippet of what could be found in the website. Now, whether they changed the website after this lawsuit was filed, I don't know. But if you go and you look in diario.mx, you could see that it says under the flagship of El Diario de Juarez that you could subscribe to receive El Diario de Juarez or El Paso. And in fact, it specifically states that you could receive El Diario de Juarez as a printed newspaper delivered in the comfort of your office and or home. This is targeted to El Paso residents. Excuse me, it is an interactive website because it allows you to put your name, your email, telephone number, and address. And when we go through the witnesses, I'll show you, Judge, that you could actually select the subscription that you want, whether you want to receive something Monday through Saturday, or you only want to receive the Sunday edition, whether you want to do something on a month-to-month basis or for a year-long subscription, the website, at least at some point, allowed you to be able to have that interactive exchange with Texas-based residents to subscribe to El Diario de Juarez. And as noted earlier, they go even further by saying that you could actually receive that newspaper in the comfort of your home and office. This is what I was referring to earlier. Now, this also shows, like the other, and it's the same format. This one just has more information than the other, but both of them had the same information that you could get El Diario de Juarez or El Diario del Paso, and you could see here how you, as a prospective subscriber, could actually interact with this website and obtain a subscription agreement, a contract with Texas-based residents. Now, El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez, as I indicated earlier, jointly circulate in El Paso County. Wherever El Diario del Paso goes, El Diario de Juarez follows. They are sold as one newspaper. You could see, based on this report of newspaper circulation by year that was provided to us by El Diario del Paso, how El Diario del Paso is sold since 2015 through 2020, how much of it is sold and circulated in El Paso County, and how much money they're making. But this should give the court, I hope, at least a reference point of how many residents in a year in El Paso County receive El Diario del Paso, and more likely than not, received a similar number of El Diario de Juarez newspapers. This shows that at least in 2019, when these publications were made, that almost 800,000 individuals in El Paso County received a copy of El Diario del Paso, and we would argue that by extension, a copy of El Diario de Juarez. Now, this is a snippet that was taken from Diario Digital. It has been translated in English, but you could see that both El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez use Diario Digital as a source of marketing, of showcasing how they pool their resources to show how they are creating history together, which is what this document shows. It says El Diario, creating content of interest and support for the state of Chihuahua, El Paso, Texas, and Las Cruces, New Mexico. It doesn't say El Diario del Paso, it says El Diario, which again, we've established before that refers to El Diario de Juarez. In this document, they show that they have presumably 350,000 daily readers on the website, and it includes the email addresses, or I'm sorry, the website addresses for all the various diarios located in the different parts of Chihuahua, including diariousa.com, which is El Diario del Paso. Even though you have El Diario de Juarez advertising this and Diario Digital, the court could see at the bottom the phone numbers for any prospective purchaser of advertisement or subscription is a 915 area code. That's the phone number that they have. They don't list phone numbers in Ciudad Juarez. These are just examples, Judge, not to be exhaustive, of individuals who reside in El Paso, Texas, who have at one point or another paid directly to El Diario de Juarez for the subscription of that newspaper in El Paso. And that has been true for many years. This that's on the screen is a sole source letter that was provided by Osvaldo Rodriguez Jimenez to El Paso Community College. It states, and this is again, what Mr. Rodriguez told EPCC at the time that it was seeking to enter into a contract with that El Paso-based institution, that I quote, El Diario del Paso has been in business in El Paso since May 2005 until this current date. El Diario del Paso, with their other publications, such as El Diario de Juarez and El Diario de Chihuahua, can reach the market, the Mexican market, like no other media in El Paso, Texas. The daily circulation of El Diario de Juarez, Monday through Saturday, is 75,626 and 76,277. El Diario de Juarez has been in business for 44 years. Of note is that El Diario del Paso refers to its other publications such as El Diario de Juarez. Why would Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez consider El Diario de Juarez to be a publication of El Diario del Paso? If they are, as you've heard from Mr. Davis, completely newspapers, again, it shows, as you could see on the very top of his letter, how they commingle El Diario del Paso, El Diario de Chihuahua, and El Diario de Juarez. They are, without a doubt, doing business in the state and contracting with El Paso businesses, institutions, and residents for advertisement. This also shows you, Judge, the documents that we've received from El Diario del Paso that show how they have Juarez subscriptions with Texas-based residents, and even have a circulation department that circulates the El Diario de Juarez newspaper in El Paso, and they also circulate that newspaper in other places. Now, very briefly, Judge, we have more evidence and documents to show you, but I'd like to address the point made earlier by defendant's counsel with respect to the defamation cases that we cited. In similar cases, the Supreme Court has found personal jurisdiction where a publisher purposefully targets a forum state. That is the distinction, Judge. It's not so much that there was a random, isolated, fortuitous contact in a forum state. What the court needs to find is that the defendant purposefully made a targeted effort to reach the forum state. In this case, Keaton versus Hustler Magazine, Inc., which is a 1984 decision from the Supreme Court, a New York resident filed a defamation suit in New Hampshire against the publisher of Hustler Magazine, which was an Ohio corporation headquartered in California. Although the defendant's only contacts with New Hampshire consisted of monthly magazine sales there, the court concluded that the distribution of some 10,000 to 15,000 copies of that magazine in that state each month could not, by any stretch of the imagination, be characterized as random, isolated, or fortuitous. The court viewed this as evidence that the defendant chose to enter the New Hampshire market and found it to be sufficient to support an assertion of jurisdiction in a libel action based on the contents of the magazine. Noting that New Hampshire has a significant interest in redressing injuries that actually occur within the state, and that the tort of libel is generally held to occur wherever the offending material is circulated, the court concluded that because the defendant had continuously and deliberately exploited the New Hampshire market, it must reasonably anticipate being hailed into court there in a libel action based on the contents of its magazine. The court focused on the fact that there was circulation of that offending material in the forum state, which that is what the evidence will show in this case. The Supreme Court reached the same decision in Calder versus Jones in 1984. In that case, Hollywood actress Shirley Jones filed suit in California for defamation based on statements in a National Enquirer article. Because the Enquirer sold nearly twice as many copies in California than in any other state, the reporter and editor knew that the brunt of that injury would be felt by Jones in the state in which she lives and works, and in which the National Enquirer has its largest circulation. Again, in this case, the court concluded that the reporter and editor must reasonably anticipate being hailed into court there in California to answer for the truth of the statements made in their article. the court specifically relied on the fact that the National Enquirer had a massive circulation in California, even though it was not headquartered in that state. There was reference made earlier this morning of the Texas Supreme Court case, Taviasteca versus Ruiz. It was a 2016 case decided by the Texas Supreme Court that relied on Keaton and Calder, which are the two cases that we just discussed. In that case, the Texas Supreme Court found personal jurisdiction against the Mexican national broadcast station and television host who allegedly defamed a Mexican singer in Texas. There, the plaintiff alleged that defendants defamed her in broadcasts in Mexico that aired in Texas. Now, this is critical, Judge, because the defendants in that case were Mexican corporations or residents, which is true here. Both Publicaciones Paso del Norte and Publicaciones e Impresos are Mexican corporations or presumably headquartered in Ciudad Juarez, just for the sake of argument. Yet, in the Taviasteca case, the Supreme Court found that neither had offices, employees, representatives, nor agents in Texas, and neither defendant had previously been made a party to a lawsuit in Texas. Again, no offices, no employees, no representatives, no agents in this state. Regardless, the Texas Supreme Court still found that defendants had sufficient minimum contacts and purposefully availed themselves of the benefits and privileges of the state of Texas. In reaching that conclusion, the Texas Supreme Court found that defendants had intentionally targeted Texas through those broadcasts by, among other things, targeting its products to Texas residents and making advertisements of Texas businesses for Texas consumers. Exactly what we have in this case. The last case I'll mention, Judge, is the case that was brought up earlier this morning. It's Spur Star, a Texas Supreme Court case. Here, what you heard from defendants earlier is that they're going to claim that El Diario del Paso goes to Juarez to purchase the El Diario de Juarez newspapers. Those Mexican newspapers are presumably brought by El Diario del Paso to the state of Texas. And at that point, presumably El Diario de Juarez will say they have absolutely no control over that newspaper. It is now completely up to El Diario del Paso to do whatever it wants with those newspapers, but they claim that presumably by virtue of the fact that they don't touch Texas soil, they should not be hailed into this court. Well, Spur Star offers, I think, the court a good analogy of what the court could do in this case. In that case, Spur Star was a foreign manufacturer who sold its products in Texas through a Texas distributor, which we'll call limited. The court was asked to consider whether the use of that distributorship insulated the manufacturer from the reach of a Texas court when one of the products injured a Texas citizen. Mr. Corral is a US citizen. The court held that a manufacturer is subject to specific personal jurisdiction in Texas when it intentionally targets Texas as the marketplace for its products, and that using a distributor intermediary, which we think that that's presumably the relationship between El Diario del Paso and El Diario de Juarez, for that purpose provides no haven from the jurisdiction of a Texas court. When an out-of-state defendant manufacturer like Spur Star AG specifically targets Texas as a market for its products, that manufacturer is subject to a product liability suit in Texas based on a product sold here, even if the sales are conducted through a Texas distributor or affiliates. In such cases, it is not the actions of the Texas intermediary that count, but the actions of the foreign manufacturer who markets and distributes the product for profit from the Texas economy. The court found that purposeful availment of local markets may be either direct through one's own offices and employees, or indirect through affiliates or independent distributors. A non-resident manufacturer does not avoid Texas law merely by utilizing a Texas distributor to sell its products in Texas markets. Just as manufacturers cannot escape liability for defective products by selling them through a subsidiary or distributor, neither can they avoid jurisdiction related to such claims by the same means. And that's exactly what happened in this case, Judge. That's all we have.
I may, Your Honor.
Davis?
Sure. If the court will recall, in our discovery dispute with Mr. Corral, the court ordered us to go back between 10 and 18 years to provide documents. And a lot of those documents that were shown you today come from that production going back up to 18 years ago, again, before the creation of the separate entities that are before the court today. And like I said, I knew that's what they were going to do, is say, you know, way back when a different entity did this, and therefore we're going to use it for jurisdiction today. And that's just not the case. He keeps mentioning DiarioUSA.com. Again, that's owned by an entity that's not before the court today. Now let's get to the meat of the stuff. One, Juarez is not paid a nickel from the sale of El Paso paper. It gets paid for printing the paper in Juarez by El Paso, and El Paso gets the income from selling the newspaper here. Two, if the court will recall, the UTEP and community college contracts, which Mr. Ortega showed the court, and then he represented to the court that these were contracts by all those El Diario entities. If the court would looked at the signature line of who contracted, it was Paso del Norte Publishing, Inc. Okay, which gives rise to, I think, the real crux of one of the 2 or 3 big issues here, and that is, as I said earlier, this is more of a maquila operation, and I think the plaintiff has it wrong as to who's doing what. El Paso, El Diario de Juarez is not targeting El Paso consumers. Those businesses, UTEP, community college, all those restaurants are looking for Mexican customers. They're advertising over there because El Diario de Juarez has 10 times as many newspapers in Juarez as it has here, as it gets put in the El Paso paper here. They're looking for Mexican customers. It's not coming from Mexico, it's going over there. That's a big market. It's a big market for UTEP, a big market for community college, and a big market for those restaurants. They're going to Mexico. And we'll get to some of the, he's misstated some of the facts that will be shown, but that's because they've got the documents and haven't heard the testimony, and we'll go through that. Well, let's go back to a couple of things. One, the Taviasteca case. They said, if you remember at the bottom, the court said, we come to this conclusion because Taviasteca targeted Texas businesses for advertising for Texas consumers. We don't have that here. The advertising they're getting is for Mexican consumers. Also, with regards to the Spur Star case, and this is, I think, one of the critical issues. Earlier on, Mr. Ortega put up there the additional conduct that you must have besides putting something in the stream of commerce is advertising in the forum state. There's no evidence that any advertising in the forum state. Designing the product for the market in the forum state. Since the creation of El Diario de El Paso, the El Paso portion of that paper is designed for Texas. By definition, El Diario de Juarez has designed its paper for its Mexican consumers in Juarez. Just like the one in Chihuahua, Parral, Casas Grandes, they've designed their paper for their customers. It's El Paso which is elected as a part of its paper for its customers to bring that information over here. Whether, you can call it, they can call it that it's a sales agent or whatever. fact of the matter is Juarez doesn't make that decision. Juarez doesn't sell in El Paso, and Juarez didn't bring the articles. And with that, Your Honor, we're ready to put on our first witness, but my question is, my understanding was that this case was set for 2 hours.
You've got all day.
Perfect. Perfect. And I would call Mr. Rodriguez to testify.
I guess before Mr. Rodriguez Jimenez testifies, I have an appointment that I have to leave by 3 o'clock, Judge, and I wasn't sure how much time the court would allot. I hope that we don't have to get to that point, but I just wanted to make the court aware.
What time is that, sir?
It would be at 3 o'clock, Mr. Davis.
Okay.
I don't think that we'll get to that point, but I just wanted to make sure that I alerted the court at the earliest convenience.
All right. The witness, raise your right hand. You swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do that.
Give us your first and last name for the court reporter, please.
Osvaldo Rodriguez Jimenez.
Okay. Madam Interpreter Lynette Garza, she will interpret, just, answer in Spanish. She will translate to the English language. That's the way we do things, okay? Thank you. Ms.
This is
Garza?
interpreter, Your Honor. May I address the witness? May I give
Yes.
him instructions?
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Judge.
Yes.
Hola, buenos días. Yo voy a ser su intérprete el día de hoy. Entonces, como le indicó el juez, le voy a pedir que por favor me espera que le interprete la pregunta al español primero y después su respuesta en español y yo la interpretaré para el juzgado al inglés.
Será. Gracias.
Le voy a pedir que por favor sus respuestas sean en frases cortas y pausadas para que yo pueda ir interpretando lo que usted vaya diciendo, ¿de acuerdo?
¿De acuerdo?
Muy bien. Thank you, Judge.
Yes, ma'am. Counsel.
Mr. Rodriguez, where were you born, sir?
Señor Rodríguez, ¿en dónde nació, señor?
Nací en México, Distrito Federal.
I was born in Mexico City.
And where do you reside?
¿Y en dónde vive?
Vivo en El Paso, Texas.
I live in El Paso, Texas.
Okay. Are you a citizen of El Paso, of Texas? I mean, of the United States, I'm sorry. Are you a citizen of the United States?
¿Es usted ciudadano del Paso? De Texas, bueno, disculpe, de los Estados Unidos. ¿Es ciudadano de los Estados Unidos?
Sí, soy ciudadano de Estados Unidos.
Yes, I am a U.S. citizen.
And what is your relationship to Paso del Norte Publishing Inc.?
Soy vicepresidente de Paso del Norte.
No.
I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. Because I know a little English, so I'm sorry.
¿Cuál es su relación con Paso del Norte Publishing Inc.?
Soy vicepresidente de Paso del Norte Publishing.
I am the vice president of Paso del Norte Publishing.
And what is your relationship to Publicaciones y Impresos?
¿Y cuál es su relación a publicaciones impresas?
Soy el director comercial.
I am the commercial director.
Okay. We talked today about Publicaciones Paso del Norte SADCB, correct?
This is the interpreter. Can you repeat that question, please?
In our opening statement, we talked today about Publicaciones Paso del Norte.
En nuestra declaración de apertura el día de hoy hablamos acerca de publicaciones Paso del Norte. Yes.
Does it have any employees?
¿Tiene tiene empleados?
Publicaciones Paso del Norte.
Yes.
¿Publicaciones Paso del Norte?
Sí.
Yes.
It has employees?
¿Sí tiene empleados?
¿En dónde?
Where?
No. Let's backtrack.
Que vamos a retractarnos.
Publicaciones Paso del Norte hosts the website Diario DMX, does it not?
Okay.
Okay. This is the interpreter. Judge, may I instruct the witness again?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Señor, por favor, si necesita usar el intérprete, le voy a pedir que me espere a que interprete la pregunta, porque si la estoy interpretando y usted está respondiendo, no puedo interpretar lo que usted está diciendo y no consta ante el acta, ¿de acuerdo?
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
Does it have its own employees in Juarez?
¿Tiene sus propios empleados en Juárez?
¿Cuál empresa?
Which business?
the website, publication, Paso del Norte.
La página de internet, publicación Paso del Norte.
No, no tiene empleados.
Does it
No,
have a-
it does not have any employees.
Does it have a bank account?
Tiene cuentas de banco.
No tiene cuenta de banco.
It does not have a bank account.
Now, did you have anything to do with the articles that are the subject of the lawsuit?
Ahora, ¿tuvo usted algo que ver con los artículos que son el asunto de esta demanda?
No.
No.
Are you here to testify about the details of the articles?
¿Está usted aquí para declarar acerca de los detalles en los artículos?
No.
No.
Let's go through the little history related to the sale of El Diario de Juarez.
Vamos a hablar acerca de algunos antecedentes, acerca de la venta del Diario de Juárez.
When was Paso del Norte Publishing formed?
¿Cuándo se formó Paso del Norte Publishing?
En el 2015,
En 2015.
2015 or 2005?
¿2015 o 2005?
no, perdón, 2005.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2005.
Okay. Prior to 2005, was El Diario de Juarez sold directly to El Paso?
Antes del 2005, ¿el Diario de Juárez se vendía directamente en El Paso?
Sí.
Yes.
And what was the name of the entity that did those sales?
¿Cuál era el nombre de la entidad que se encargaba de esas ventas?
Paso del Norte Inc.
Paso del Norte Inc.
I'm talking before, was that Publicaciones Paso del Norte Inc. or the Paso del Norte Inc. that we were talking about?
Y estamos hablando acerca de antes. ¿Era Publicaciones Paso del Norte Inc. o Paso del Norte?
Antes del 2005 era Paso del Norte Inc.
I'm talking about
Before 2005, it was Paso del Norte Inc.
Okay. How could Paso del Norte Inc. Oh, Paso del Norte Publishing Inc. I mean, what, I'm trying to get the name right.
¿O está hablando acerca de Paso del Norte Publishing Inc? ¿O estoy tratando de tener el nombre correcto?
Si es que me confunde Paso del Norte Inc., Paso del Norte Publishing, a lo mejor no estoy entendiendo bien la
The
pregunta.
thing is, I get confused with Paso del Norte and Paso del Norte Publishing. Maybe I am confusing them, the names.
Did a Mexican entity prior to the formation of Paso del Norte Publishing in 2005 have its own sales office in El Paso?
Una entidad mexicana, antes de que se formara Paso del Norte Publishing en el 2005, tenía su propia punto de venta en El Paso.
Tenía su oficina en El Paso, sí.
It had its office in El Paso, yes.
And what was the name of the Mexican entity that had a sales office in El Paso prior to 2005?
¿Cuál era el nombre de la entidad mexicana que tenía el punto de venta en El Paso, la oficina en El Paso, antes del 2005?
Creo que Editora Paso del Norte.
I think it was Editora Paso del Norte.
Okay. And when was Publicaciones y Impresos formed?
¿Cuándo se formó Publicaciones Impresas?
En el 2005.
En 2005.
It was formed in 2005 also.
¿Se formó en el 2005?
Publicaciones e Impresos, perdón, esa es la empresa mexicana. No estoy seguro cuándo se formó, fue la que sustituyó a Editora Paso del Norte.
Publicaciones Impresas, I mean, that's the Mexican business. I'm not sure when it was created, but it's the one that came after Editora Paso del Norte.
Was that more than 10 years ago?
Y eso fue hace más de 10 años. Does the interpreter, I can hear the answer, Judge. May I request a repetition? No le escuché la respuesta, señor. ¿Cómo dijo?
¿Cuál fue la pregunta otra vez?
What was the question again?
Was it more than 10 years ago?
¿Fue hace más de 10 años?
¿Cuál empresa? Es que son muchas empresas, perdón.
Which business? We're talking about different businesses.
Hey, Publicaciones y impresos, was it for more than 10 years ago?
Publicaciones impresos fue hace más de 10 años.
No estoy seguro.
I'm not sure.
Was it for more than 5 years ago?
Se formó hace más de 5 años.
Sí.
Yes.
After Paso del Norte Publishing was formed, did the Mexican entity, Editora, or whatever it was, still have an office in El Paso?
Después de que se formó Paso del Norte Publishing, la compañía o la entidad mexicana, la editora o como sea que se llamara, ¿tenía una oficina en El Paso?
No.
No.
So I'm going to call it PEI, the one that you said was more than 4 years ago.
Entonces voy a nombrar como PEI el que usted dijo que se formó hace más de 4 años.
When it was formed, did it begin to publish El Diario de Juarez?
Cuando se formó, empezó a publicar el Diario de Juárez.
Es que estoy confundido con el nombre de las empresas. No quiero cometer errores.
I am confused with the name of the businesses. I don't want to make any mistakes.
Do you know the name of the entity that publishes El Diario de Juarez?
¿Usted conoce el nombre de la entidad que publica el Diario de Juárez?
Sí.
Yes.
What is the name?
¿Cuál es ese nombre?
Publicaciones e impresos Paso del Norte.
Publicaciones e impresos Paso del Norte.
Okay.
And since it was formed, did it have an office in Texas?
Y desde que se formó, ¿tuvo una oficina en El Paso? Perdón, ¿en Texas?
No.
No.
Did it have a phone number within El Paso area code?
¿Tiene un número de teléfono con el código de área del Paso?
Does it have subscribers from El Paso?
Wait, there was no response to the last question.
I'm
Just
sorry.
Esperen, no,
He just
no
shook
hubo,
his head. I don't know what that means. Yes or no?
no
Okay.
hubo respuesta para la última pregunta. Él nada más movió su mano, pero eso no sé qué significa, sí o no.
Mi respuesta fue no.
My answer was no.
Does it have subscribers directly from El Paso for El
Tien-
Diario de Juarez?
¿Tiene suscriptores en El Paso para el Diario de Juárez?
No.
No.
Does it recruit Texas residents to be employees?
¿Recluta a residentes de Texas para que sean sus empleados?
No.
No.
Does it receive payments from El Paso residents for subscriptions?
¿Recibe pagos de parte de los residentes de El Paso para las suscripciones?
No.
No.
To your knowledge, has it ever entered into a contract, a Texas contract with a Texas resident?
¿A su conocimiento ha habido en algún momento algún contrato entre un residente de Texas?
No.
No.
To your knowledge, has PEI or Publicaciones ever filed or defended a lawsuit in Texas other than this?
¿A su conocimiento, PEI o Publicaciones en algún momento ha promovido una demanda o ha defendido una demanda aquí en Texas?
No.
No.
Who are the readers that Publicaciones y Impresos targets with the newspaper that it publishes?
¿Quiénes son los lectores que Publicaciones Impresos a quienes se enfoca con estas? This interpreter, can you repeat that question, please?
Who are the readers that Publicaciones targets with that paper that it publishes in Mexico?
Entonces, ¿quiénes son los lectores a los que se enfoca Publicaciones Impresas con ese periódico que publica en México?
A la gente de Ciudad Juárez.
The people of Juarez City.
Okay. Did you see the Vamos article, the Vamos publication that was on the screen earlier today?
¿Usted vio esa publicación de Vamos que se presentó en la pantalla anteriormente el día de hoy?
Sí.
Yes.
Were the advertisements contained in that Vamos publication targeted to Texas readers?
Y las publicidades que se presentaron en esa, vamos, eran enfocadas para los lectores de Texas.
Sí.
Yes.
Well, the ads are from Texas. Who are the consumers that the businesses are targeting?
Objection calls for speculation.
Good
Puedo
question.
responder.
Hold on. Just because you're targeting one sector of a community doesn't mean that the other sectors of the community aren't receiving that message. So
That is correct, Your Honor, but as we heard in the argument, who you target is a key component of, whether or not you're seeking the benefits of that other forum.
Well, he already testified that Vamos targets Texas readers. I guess he's now asking, speculating who would be purchasing based on those advertisements.
that is speculative.
Does Vamos target Texas readers, or does it target Mexican readers, or both?
Vamos se enfoca a los lectores de Texas, los lectores de México o los dos.
Los dos.
Both.
Okay. What is your understanding as to what market Texas businesses are looking to when they advertise with Vamos?
¿Qué es su entendimiento de cuál es el mercado que las publicidad de Vamos está buscando cuando publican Vamos?
Traer gente de México a El Paso. Gente de
To
Juarez.
bring people from Mexico to El Paso.
Is Publicaciones registered to do business in Texas?
¿Publicaciones está registrado para tener negocios en Texas?
No.
No.
It has a bank account in Texas, does it not?
¿Tiene una cuenta de banco en Texas? ¿Que no?
No.
No.
It does not?
¿No la tiene?
So does Paso del Norte Publishing and Publicaciones share bank accounts?
Paso del Norte Publishing y Publicaciones, ¿comparten cuentas de banco?
No.
No.
Do they share reporters?
¿Comparten
Journalists?
comparten periodistas?
No.
No.
Do they share editors?
¿Comparten a los que hacen las revisiones?
No.
No. Traducciones is a translator. Editors, is that what you mean?
Yes, sir, editors.
Okay, he's talking about editors. Okay.
This is interpreter. Judge. I didn't say traducciones, I said revisiones. Judge.
Okay.
Sí lo entendí y la respuesta es no.
It was understood. The answer is no.
Do they share offices?
¿Comparten oficinas?
No.
Do they share phone numbers?
¿Comparten números de teléfono?
No.
Do they share tax returns?
¿Comparten los impuestos, las declaraciones de impuestos de ingresos?
No.
Other than yourself, does it have any employees in Texas?
Aparte de usted mismo, ¿tiene algún otro empleado en Texas?
Sí.
Yes.
And who is that?
¿Quién?
Arturo Fierro.
Arturo Fierro.
Just the one?
¿Nada más ese?
Sí.
Yes.
Does Publicaciones own any property in Texas?
¿Publicaciones es dueño de algún bien inmueble en Texas?
No.
No.
Does PPDN have any business, and PPDN being Publicaciones Paso del Norte, have any business other than hosting the website?
PPDN, o sea, Publicaciones Paso del Norte, ¿tiene algún otro negocio aparte de poner la página de internet?
No,
No.
Let's pull up a couple of exhibits, and I'm going to go through them, and then we'll go on to some more global questions, Mr. Rodriguez. Pull up number 15.
Council exhibits, have you shared those with my court reporter?
These are their exhibits that they've already pulled up, Your Honor, and yes, I think we've all been here.
Vamos a hablar acerca de unos elementos de prueba antes de hablar más en general acerca de esto.
I think exhibit 19, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. You recall seeing this exhibit earlier during Mr. Ortega's presentation?
¿Recuerda haber visto este elemento de prueba anteriormente durante la presentación del señor Ortega?
sí,
Yes.
Okay. And he says that it's a subscription for El Diario de Juarez by El Paso residents.
Él dice que es una suscripción para el Diario de Juárez de parte de residentes de El Paso.
no es posible. El diario de
That's
Juárez,
not possible.
el diario de Juárez no llega a ninguna parte sin el diario de Paso a Juárez, al Paso.
That is not possible. El Diario de Juárez does not go anywhere, does not go to anywhere else. Just el Diario del Paso.
Can someone who lives in El Paso subscribe to get just El Diario de Juarez delivered to his or her house?
¿Alguien que vive en El Paso puede suscribirse a recibir nada más el Diario de Juárez para que lo reciba en su casa?
No,
No.
Can someone in Juarez subscribe to have El Diario de El Paso delivered to their house in Juarez?
¿Alguien en Juárez puede suscribirse para recibir el Diario del Paso en su casa en Juárez?
no.
No.
Pull up exhibit 30, if you would, please, Ms. Canales.
Piden el elemento de prueba número 30, por favor, para la señora Canales.
Okay. In the exhibit list that the plaintiff provided, he has called these El Diario de Juarez cash receipts. Is that what they are?
En la lista de elementos de prueba se nombró este como el Diario de Juárez recibo en efectivo. ¿Esto es lo que es esto?
No,
No.
this is exhibit 30.
Yes, sir.
correct.
Exhibit 30.
Y este es el elemento de prueba 30, ¿correcto? Sí, su señoría.
Does El Diario de Juarez get payments from El Diario de El Paso for El Paso's sale of its newspaper?
El Diario de Juárez recibe pagos del Diario del Paso de las ventas de este periódico.
¿me puede repetir la respuesta, por favor?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Let's talk about the relationship, and that may make things simpler. Tell the court how El Diario de El Paso gets its paper printed, delivered in El Paso, and then sold. How that process works.
Que vamos a hablar acerca de la relación, tal vez así sea un poquito más fácil. Dígale al juez cómo es que el Diario del Paso imprime y después hace la entrega y después se distribuye el diario en sí. Dígale al juez cómo funciona ese proceso.
Claro que sí. Señor juez, el Diario de El Paso le paga a Diario de Juárez por imprimir el periódico. El Diario del Paso va en su propia camioneta todos los días a las oficinas de Juárez a recoger el periódico.
And give her a chance to translate.
Ok.
Certainly, Your Honor. El Diario de El Paso pays el Diario de Juárez to print a newspaper. El Diario de El Paso, on their own van, goes every day to the offices in Juárez to pick up the newspaper.
El Diario de Juárez opera como una maquiladora de periódico, única y exclusivamente para el Diario del Paso.
El Diario de Juárez works as a maquiladora with the only purpose to print the newspaper for El Paso, el Diario del Paso.
Una vez que el Diario del Paso está en El Paso, se va a las oficinas del Diario del Paso.
Once el Diario del Paso is in El Paso, it goes to el Diario del Paso offices.
Y de ahí está un departamento de circulación del Diario del Paso que se encarga de distribuir todo el periódico.
And from there, there is a distribution office that is in charge of distributing the newspaper.
Are there separate El Paso and Juarez routes for the newspapers in El Paso?
¿Hay rutas distintas para El Paso y Juárez de el periódico del Paso?
No.
No.
Does Paso del Norte Publishing pay Publicaciones for printing the paper?
¿Paso del Norte Publishing le paga a Publicaciones para traer el periódico?
¿Sí?
How
Yes.
often?
¿Qué tan seguido?
Cada mes.
Every month.
What exactly does Paso del Norte Publishing pick up in Juarez every day?
¿Qué es exactamente lo que Paso del Norte recoge en Juárez todos los días?
El Diario del Paso.
El Diario del Paso.
And what comprises El Diario de El Paso?
¿Qué es lo que conlleva el Diario del Paso?
No entendí la pregunta.
I don't understand the question.
Does El Diario de El Paso have more than one section?
¿El Diario del Paso tiene más de una sección?
Sí, el Diario de Juárez está dentro del Diario del Paso.
Yes, el Diario de Juárez is inside el Diario de El Paso.
Is El Diario de Juarez sold in El Paso as El Diario de Juarez?
¿El Diario de Juárez se vende en El Paso como el Diario de Juárez?
No.
No.
Was it sold? What does Paso del Norte Publishing Inc. sell in El Paso?
¿Qué es lo que Paso del Norte Publishing Inc. vende en El Paso?
El Paso del Norte Publishing vende el Diario del Paso y actúa como una agencia de publicidad para los periódicos de Juárez y Chihuahua.
Paso del Norte Publishing sells el Diario de El Paso and acts as an advertising agency for the newspapers for Juárez and Chihuahua.
Other than paying Publicaciones y Impresos for publishing, for printing the paper, does Paso del Norte Publishing pay yet anything else arising from the sale of El Diario de El Paso?
Aparte de pagar a Publicaciones e Impresiones por las impresiones, el Diario del Paso paga cualquier otra cosa a el diario.
Sí,
Por la venta del diario, perdón.
sí, la publicidad.
Yes, the advertising.
Let's talk about the advertising then.
Vamos a hablar acerca de la publicidad entonces.
You recall seeing Mr. Ortega put on the screen contracts with UTEP and El Paso Community College.
Recuerda haber visto que el señor Ortega publicó en la pantalla contratos con UTEP y con El Paso Community College.
Sí,
Yes.
Were those contracts by those entities with Paso, like which defendant entity signed the contracts with UTEP and El Paso Community College?
¿Cuál fue la entidad en sí que firmó los contratos con UTEP y El Paso Community College?
la entidad americana, Paso del Norte Publishing.
The American entity, Paso del Norte Publishing.
Did Publicaciones y Impresos sign that contract, those contracts?
¿Publicaciones e impresos firmaron esos contratos?
No,
Did the Chihuahua entity sign those contracts?
¿La entidad de Chihuahua firmó esos contratos?
no,
No.
Were those contracts for the receipt of Juarez or Chihuahua newspapers by UTEP or community college?
This is the interpreter. Can you repeat that question, please?
Was the purpose of those contracts so that UTEP or community college would get subscriptions to the Juarez or Chihuahua newspapers?
El motivo de esos contratos era para que UTEP obtuviera esas suscripciones a los periódicos de Juárez o Chihuahua.
no,
No.
What were they for?
¿Para qué eran?
para atraer a la gente del estado de Chihuahua que está interesada en las clases de UTEP o las clases del Community College.
To bring people from Chihuahua who are interested in the classes for UTEP or community college.
In other words, they wanted to advertise UTEP and community college wanted to advertise in Mexico.
En otras palabras, UTEP o community college querían tener la publicidad en México.
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
If an El Paso business wants to advertise in Juarez, can it go directly to Juarez and contract with Publicaciones y Impresos?
Si un negocio de El Paso quiere tener publicidad en Juárez, ¿pueden ir directamente con publicaciones impresos y tener un contrato con ellos?
No,
No.
If a Juarez company wants to advertise in Paso del Norte Publishing's paper, can it do so in Juarez?
Si una compañía de Juárez quiere tener publicidad en Paso del Norte Publishing, ¿pueden hacerlo en Juárez?
no,
No.
What's the circulation of the Juarez paper in Juarez?
¿Cuál es la circulación actual del periódico en Juárez?
14,000 ejemplares entre semana y 18,000 en los domingos.
14,000 issues during the week and 18,000 on Sundays.
Is that a lot more than the El Paso circulation?
¿Y eso es mucho más que la circulación del Paso?
Oh, claro, sí.
Of course, yes.
I think we saw on the screen earlier, the El Paso circulation is in the 3,000 range now.
Creo que anteriormente vimos en la pantalla que la circulación en El Paso es como a 3,000.
¿Es correcto?
That is correct.
Okay. So who does a El Paso entity like UTEP or a business arrange to advertise in Mexico?
Entonces, ¿con quién es que una entidad del Paso como UTEP o algún negocio tiene que contactar para poder tener la publicidad en México?
Con un agente de ventas de Paso del Norte Publishing en El Paso.
With a sales agent from Paso del Norte Publishing in El Paso.
And those ads, are they then printed in El Diario de Juarez?
Y esa publicidad se imprime en el Diario de Juárez.
¿Es correcto?
That is correct.
And when El Diario de Juarez is a section of El Diario de El Paso, are those ads in the paper, in the El Diario de El Paso paper?
Cuando el Diario de Juárez es una sección en el Diario del Paso, esas se imprimen en la sección del Diario de Juárez.
¿Sí? Yes, sí.
Yes.
Let's go back to subscriptions.
Vamos a devolvernos acerca de las suscripciones.
Do you remember that Mr. Ortega put on the screen the part of the website from Diario .mx for subscriptions?
Recuerda que el señor Ortega puso en la pantalla parte de la página de internet del diario.mx en donde se hablaba acerca de las suscripciones.
Sí.
Yes.
Okay. Tell the court how that subscription process works if, for example, if I'm an El Paso resident and I want to subscribe to El Diario de El Paso or El Diario de Juarez on the website.
Dígale al juez cómo es que funciona ese proceso de suscripción. Por ejemplo, si yo, un residente del Paso, quiero suscribirme al Diario de Juárez o al Diario del Paso.
Se puede meter en línea y puede pedir suscribirse a Juárez y al Paso, pero es algo que no nos ha funcionado porque nuestros lectores pues son gente mayor.
You can go online and ask to be subscribed to Juárez or El Paso, but that hasn't worked because our readers are older people.
Okay. But as an El Paso resident, can I subscribe on the website to the Juarez paper?
Pero como un residente del Paso, ¿yo puedo suscribirme por medio de la página a el Diario de Juárez?
Puede usted hacer la petición porque está la opción, pero automáticamente se dirige a Juárez o al Paso para que lo atienda la oficina que corresponda de acuerdo a la ciudad.
You can request it, but because the option is there, but it automatically sends you to either Juárez or El Paso, depending on where you are, to their office, depending on the city.
Can a potential subscriber pay for a subscription on the website?
¿Y un posible suscriptor puede pagar por la suscripción en la página de internet?
No.
No.
I don't want to talk about the particular articles today, but I want to talk about how articles generally in the two newspapers, okay?
No quiero hablar acerca de los artículos en particular el día de hoy, sino quiero hablar nada más en general acerca de los artículos en los periódicos, ¿de acuerdo?
¿De acuerdo?
Okay.
Prior to the formation of Paso del Norte Publishing Inc., we talked about the fact that you said it was Editora brought the Juarez paper to El Paso, correct?
Antes de que se formara Paso del Norte Publishing, usted dijo que Editora era el que traía el periódico El Paso, ¿correcto?
¿Es correcto?
Okay.
That's correct.
Did Editora publish a section specifically for El Paso readers when it did that?
Cuando se hacía eso, Editora publicaba una sección específicamente para los lectores del Paso.
La respuesta es no. Pero
The answer is no.
Pero hay que entender que somos un periódico que la importancia de las dos fronteras a veces implica tener notas de interés para la gente de El Paso y para la gente de Juárez. Pero la respuesta es no.
But you have to understand that we are a newspaper in between two border cities, and sometimes you have articles that are of interest to people from Juárez or El Paso, but the answer is no.
Since Paso del Norte Publishing was created, is there more of an effort to create content directly for El Paso readers?
Desde que se creó el Paso del Norte Publishing, se hizo un mayor esfuerzo para crear contenido que se enfocara a los lectores del Paso.
Claro que sí, fue el propósito.
Of course, that was its purpose.
And who decides what articles are written for the El Paso readers?
¿Quién decide cuáles son los artículos que se redactan para los lectores del Paso?
El editor del Diario del Paso.
The editor of el Diario del Paso.
For Juarez, okay, once Paso del Norte Publishing was created, did Editor begin to focus more on Juarez than it had before Paso del Norte Publishing was created?
Cuando se creó Paso del Norte Publishing, el editor se empezó a enfocar más en Juárez que antes de que se creara Paso del Norte Publishing.
Sí, claro. Cada quien tiene su responsabilidad. Diario del Paso, editor, tiene su responsabilidad. Diario de Juárez, editor, tiene su responsabilidad. Cuando antes era un solo periódico, ahora son dos periódicos completamente separados.
Yes, of course. El Diario del Paso editor has its own responsibility. El Diario de Juárez editor has its own responsibility. When before it was just one diario, now they are two completely separate ones.
Is it fair to say then, Mr. Rodriguez, that the articles that are printed in Juarez are targeted to Mexican citizens?
Sería justo decir entonces que los artículos que se imprimen en Juárez están dirigidos a los ciudadanos mexicanos.
Completamente injusto.
That would completely be unfair to say.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Porque aquí tengo una prueba, señor juez, de que hubo un accidente, desafortunadamente, una muerte de 2 personas en Juárez. Y este es el Diario del Paso. Y lo tenemos aquí arriba el día de hoy. Y luego ya le damos una entrada a que lo lean en el Diario de Juárez.
Because I have proof here, Your Honor, that there was an accident. It was an unfortunate accident where 2 people died in Juárez, and it's here in El Paso, El Diario del Paso today, and there's also an entry in El Diario de Juárez.
A lo mejor no lo expliqué bien, pues usted me pregunta por qué. Antes de que el Diario del Paso existiera, era un solo periódico. El Diario de Juárez buscaba noticias de interés para ambas fronteras.
Okay, maybe I didn't explain myself correctly, Your Honor. Before El Diario del Paso existed, El Diario de Juárez would look for stories that would be of interest for both border cities.
Al día de hoy que tenemos el Diario del Paso, ya los editores del Paso se concentran completamente en noticias del Paso y de Estados Unidos. Y Juárez se concentra completamente en noticias de Juárez y de México.
Nowadays, El Diario del Paso focuses on news from El Paso and the United States. The editor focuses on those, and El Diario de Juárez editor focuses on stories from Juárez and Mexico.
Is it fair to say then that Paso del Norte Publishing targets the El Paso readers and Publicaciones y Impresos targets the Mexican readers?
Sería justo decir entonces que Paso del Norte Publishing se enfoca en los lectores del Paso y Publicaciones Impresas se enfoca en los lectores de México.
¿Correcto?
Correct.
I don't know if I can take about a 5-minute break. I may be done with this witness.
Okay.
Su señoría, si me permite tomar un descanso de 5 minutos. Con eso
Yes.
termino con el testigo.
Okay, let's take about a 10-minute break.
Okay.
Got a court reporter needs a break. Okay.
Oh,
Ok, vamos a tomar un descanso de 10 minutos. This is interpreter, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so I am aware, will we be taking a lunch break at some point?
Yes.
Just so I
yes,
can
Yes, ma'am.
figure it out. Okay.
Yes, we're going to be taking a lunch break. That's the arrangement that I need to make. Okay.
you got it.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
We know. We don't.
Hey. All right, it is, I show on my watch, it's 11:32:33. We will cut off at about 12:15 and take about a 40-minute lunch. And then we'll pick up again, okay?
Okay.
You need to break at 3 o'clock, Mr. Ortega?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Look, if we need to, continue, then we'll, on a loose.
I'm free Thursday and Friday, both, Your Honor, if we need to do that.
Are you free Thursday and Friday, Mr. Ortega?
No, I'm leaving to Chihuahua tomorrow, coming back on Thursday night.
Then Friday.
No, Mr. Ortega.
Oh,
Sure,
no.
I'm looking at my schedule, Judge.
Judge, we have very limited availability on Thursday and Friday.
You have what?
We have very limited availability on Thursday and Friday, but we do have all of next week available, starting on Monday.
How about you, gentlemen?
Look what next week looks like.
I'm free all week next week, Judge.
Okay. Mr. Ortega?
We could, I could check my schedule, Judge. I mean, I'm hopeful that we could be done by 3. I mean, I don't have any witnesses. I'm just going to cross-examine Mr. Rodriguez, and I don't have anybody else. I don't know Mr. Davis if he plans to call Mr. Jurado or any other witness, and that could give us an indication in terms of time.
Mr. Davis?
I do plan on calling Mr. Corral, but I'm free the 25th, morning of the 26th and the 27th. So I'm free a bunch next week if we need to. I had deposition schedule all week and they got canceled, so.
Mr. Ortega, can you, look, I don't want to push you. I'm just giving you more time, okay?
Understood, Judge. I appreciate that. What are the options for next week?
Ask Anna Luz, she's the boss.
We
Ana
have
Luz?
the entire week from the 24th to the 27th.
I had a jury trial that just, folded on me.
Mr. Davis, what days did you say? Your schedule looks busier than mine next week.
I'm free Monday, the 24th, Tuesday, the 25th, and Thursday, the 27th.
Gentlemen, here's, okay, here, I'm throwing this out also. This is, I'm not saying this is how I'm going to decide, but in the event that I do decide to deny the motion and move forward to trial, I'm leaving at December. At the end of this year, I'm retiring.
Oh, we couldn't do that.
Well, I am. I've been around here for, over 30 years, and it's time for me to move on. And there you have it. You're going to have, a young judge.
Who's running for your seat, Judge?
You have Jorge Rivas. You have Miss Baez. She works with.
She works in my office.
Okay.
She's my law partner.
And then.
You're running against her now.
And then there is another lady.
Monica Perez from Mount Screen.
There you go. There you have it. Okay. That's where we're at. Okay. So we're going to break a little after 12, and then we'll break for lunch, 12:45-ish, and then come back and give it a go again. Okay?
Okay.
Understood.
All right. Well, let's go.
Okay. I just got a few more questions, Your Honor. Let's go back. Have you confirmed Mr. Rodriguez, that Editora SA de CV did used to publish the El Paso, the Juarez paper for El Paso.
Y bueno, vamos a retroceder un poco. Entonces, usted confirma, señor Rodríguez, que Editora SADCB antes publicaba el periódico de Juárez para El Paso.
Sí,
Yes.
And that is the entity that Publicaciones y Impresos replaced.
Y esa es la entidad que reemplazó Publicaciones e Impresos.
correcto.
Correct.
How much is the El Diario sold for on the newsstands?
¿En cuánto se vende el diario?
$1.
$1.
Does any of that money go to Publicaciones y Impresos?
¿Y algo de ese dinero se le envía a Publicaciones e Impresos?
No,
No.
Does any of the money for the subscriptions to El Diario de El Paso go to Publicaciones y Impresos?
¿Algo de las suscripciones del Diario del Paso va para Publicaciones e Impresos?
no.
No.
Okay. Can you pull up Exhibit 8? And do what
Pueden-
is it?
Está pidiendo el elemento de prueba número 8.
Okay. Can you tell the court what defendant's Exhibit 8 is?
¿Le puede decir al juzgado qué es este elemento de prueba número 8?
Que el diario USA.com es dueña de Editora Paso Norte Inc. Que Editora Paso Norte Inc. es dueña del dominio diario USA.com.
Es que se ve chiquita la letra y uno que tiene pantalla grande hasta.
Mr. Ortega, we can hear you.
My apologies.
Yes, sir. Okay.
That Editora Paso del Norte Inc. It's the owner of the domain diariousa.com.
Move to omit Exhibit 8.
Any objection?
No objection.
Received. As what's it marked at, identified as?
It's Exhibit 8, defendant's Exhibit 8, Your Honor, in the package that was delivered to the court.
Okay. It is received.
Thank you, Your Honor. You earlier told us that Arturo Fierro is the only employee that Publicaciones y Impresos has that resides in Texas. Is that correct?
Usted anteriormente indicó que Antonio Fierro es el único empleado que Publicaciones e Impresos tiene que vive en Texas, ¿verdad?
Arturo Fierro, sí.
Arturo Fierro, yes.
And how long has he worked for whichever Juarez entity was publishing El Diario de Juarez?
¿Y durante cuánto tiempo ha trabajado él en la entidad que publica el Diario de Juárez?
Más de 20 años.
Over 20 years.
When he started working for the entity that published El Diario de Juarez, was he a Texas resident?
Cuando él empezó a trabajar para esta entidad que publica el Diario de Juárez, ¿él era residente de Texas?
No, era
No.
mexicano.
He was Mexican.
Why was Paso del Norte Publishing Inc. created to publish El Diario de El Paso?
¿Por qué se creó Paso del Norte Publishing Inc. para crear el Diario del Paso?
Para hacer periodismo en Estados Unidos.
It was for journalism in the U.S.
Has it been expensive to operate a separate El Paso entity?
¿Y ha sido caro el operar esta entidad por separado en El Paso?
Extremadamente caro. Sería para nosotros mucho más económico no tener esta sección y circular el diario Juárez, pero el interés de nosotros es explorar esos mercados y hacer periodismo en Estados Unidos.
Extremely expensive. It would be better not to have that section and to circulate el Diario de Juárez, but it is in our interest to explore that market and open it in the United States.
In regards to the articles that are the subject of the lawsuit, where are the editors located?
Lo que se refiere a los artículos que son el asunto de la demanda, ¿en dónde está ubicado el editor a ellos?
El Diario del Paso tiene su editor y el Diario de Juárez tiene su editor.
El Diario del Paso has its own editor and el Diario de Juárez has its own editor.
So I'm talking specifically now about the three articles or the articles that Mr. Corral has sued on.
Ahora estoy hablando específicamente acerca de esos tres artículos, los artículos de los que está demandando el señor Corral.
Esos artículos fueron editados en Ciudad Juárez.
Those articles were edited in Ciudad Juárez.
And where are the journalists located that investigated and wrote those articles?
¿Y en dónde están los periodistas que investigaron y redactaron esos artículos?
En Ciudad Juárez.
En Ciudad Juárez.
Where are the public records that are referred to in the articles?
¿Y en dónde están los récords públicos de los que se refieren en estos artículos?
En Ciudad Juárez.
En Ciudad Juárez.
And where are the witnesses?
Judge, I'm going to object. I mean, this is more relevant for purposes of the motion to dismiss for forum nonconvenience. It has nothing to do with the jurisdictional issues before the court. I object on relevance.
Just for fairness grounds, Your Honor?
For fairness grounds?
Yeah. Is it fair for these Mexican entities to have to come to Texas and go through all the trouble of a Texas lawsuit and hiring Texas lawyers and the translators when everybody involved in this case is involved?
Overruled. Okay, go overruled. Go ahead.
Where are the witnesses located for these articles?
En Ciudad Juárez.
Thank you, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Ortega.
Good evening, good afternoon, I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez. Is Osvaldo Rodriguez Porunda your father?
Buenas tardes, señor Rodríguez. ¿Osvaldo Rodríguez Borunda es su padre?
Buenas tardes, señor Ortega. Sí, señor, es mi padre.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ortega. And yes, sir, he is my father.
Is Mr. Rodriguez Porunda the majority shareholder of El Diario de Juárez?
¿El señor Rodríguez Borunda es el accionista principal del Diario de Juárez?
Sí,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez Borunda is also the president of El Diario de Juárez, correct?
El señor Rodríguez Borunda también es el presidente del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
correcto.
Correct.
Mr. Rodriguez Borunda is also the general director of El Diario de Juárez, correct?
El señor Rodríguez Borunda también es el director general del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Mr. Rodriguez Borunda holds these same positions in El Diario de Juárez, del Paso, correct?
Y el señor Rodríguez Borunda tiene estas mismas posiciones en el Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Mr. Rodriguez Borunda is a resident of El Paso County, correct?
El señor Rodríguez Borunda es un residente del Condado de El Paso, ¿correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
To your knowledge, how long has your father been a resident of El Paso County?
A su conocimiento, ¿durante cuánto tiempo es que su padre ha sido residente del Condado de El Paso?
Unos 15 años, más o menos.
About 15 years, more or less.
Uninterrupted?
¿Sin interrupción?
Sí,
Yes.
I believe you testified earlier that your father is a U.S. citizen. Is that correct?
Creo que usted declaró anteriormente que su padre es ciudadano estadounidense. ¿Esto es correcto?
de 2 años para acá. 2 o 3 años.
From 2 or 3 years ago until now,
Se hizo ciudadano.
he became a citizen.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're also a shareholder of El Diario de Juárez, correct?
Señor Rodríguez, usted también es accionista del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Muy poquito, pero sí.
Very little, but yes.
What does little mean to you?
¿Qué significa poquito para usted?
Si no me equivoco, un 5%.
If I am not mistaken, 5%.
How did you become a shareholder in El Diario de Juárez?
¿Cómo es que usted se convirtió en accionista en el Diario de Juárez?
Fue una decisión de mi papá.
It was my father's decision.
In other words, these were shares of stock that your father gifted to you in El Diario de Juárez?
En otras palabras, estas fueron acciones que su padre le regaló a usted en el Diario de Juárez.
¿Correcto?
Correct.
How long have you been a shareholder of El Diario de Juarez?
¿Durante cuánto tiempo ha sido usted accionista del Diario de Juárez?
No podría contestarle eso porque mi papá maneja eso de una manera muy privada.
I wouldn't be able to answer that because my father is in charge of all of that in a very private manner.
Well, wouldn't you, as a shareholder in El Diario de Juarez, have the ability to access the books and records of that company?
Pero que usted como accionista del Diario de Juárez no tendría acceso a la contaduría y a todos los expedientes del Diario de Juárez?
No,
No.
mi trabajo en el Diario de Juárez está muy separado de la cuestión editorial.
My work in El Diario de Juárez is very separate from the editorial question.
I understand, but I'm not asking you questions about whether you're involved in any editorializing of the newspaper. I'm asking you how long you've been a shareholder in El Diario de Juárez.
Eso lo entiendo, pero yo no le estoy haciendo ninguna pregunta acerca de la cuestión editorial, sino lo que le estoy preguntando es que durante cuánto tiempo ha sido usted accionista del Diario de Juárez.
Señor Ortega, le vuelvo a repetir, es una respuesta que no le puedo contestar porque es algo que mi padre maneja muy privado por cuestiones de familia, testamentos, etc.
Mr. Ortega, Mr. Ortega, I answer again. That is an answer that I cannot give you because my father is in charge of all of that in a very private manner because of different things, family, will and testament.
El Diario de Juárez is a privately held Mexican corporation, correct?
El Diario de Juárez es una corporación privada, ¿correcto?
¿Correcto?
Correct.
Your father, as the majority shareholder in El Diario de Juárez, has operational control over that newspaper, is that correct?
Su padre, como el accionista principal, tiene el control de operaciones en ese diario, ¿correcto?
Tengo que decir algo que no me gusta. Mi papá tuvo un quebranto en su salud poquito antes de que el señor gobernador empezara sus 5 años. Tuvo una embolia y su salud no puede él estar al frente de toda la empresa. Desde 6 años, 7 años para acá. Es importante decirlo.
I have to say something. My father, he had problems with his health a few years before the governor started his term. He had an embolism and he's had problems with his health and he has needed help with the decisions.
Despite his health condition, he's still the majority shareholder of El Diario de Juárez, correct?
A pesar de su afección de salud, él aún así es el accionista principal del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Es correcto.
That is correct.
He hasn't given anybody a power of attorney to act on his behalf for any decisions related to El Diario de Juárez, is that correct?
Él no ha dado ningún poder para que actúen a su nombre en la toma de decisiones del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
Sí, yo tengo un poder, pero un poder para cuestiones legales, para cuestiones de impuestos, pero no para tomar decisiones de vender propiedades ni tampoco informativas de redacción.
I do have a legal power of attorney, but it is mainly for tax purposes or but not to make decisions or sell properties or for information purposes or editorial purposes.
When did you get that power of attorney?
¿Cuándo obtuvo usted ese poder?
Cuando mi padre tuvo el accidente.
When my father had that accident?
Now, Mr. Rodriguez, you're also a shareholder of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Señor Rodríguez, usted también es accionista del Diario de El Paso, ¿correcto?
Es correcto.
That's correct.
You're also a treasurer of El Diario del Paso?
También es usted el tesorero del Diario del Paso.
Es correcto.
Correct.
You are also an employee of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Usted también es un empleado del Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
Recibo una parte de mi salario por el Diario del Paso, porque como mi situación es complicada, yo trabajo en México, tengo que hacer mis declaraciones en Estados Unidos, una parte de mi salario lo recibo en México y otra en Estados Unidos, pero mi participación en las decisiones del Paso son mínimas.
I do receive part of my salary from El Diario del Paso. My situation is complicated. I work in Mexico, but I do have to report taxes here. So part of my salary, I receive it from El Diario del Paso, but my participation in the decision-making, it's very minimal.
For the sake of clarity, if you're receiving wages from El Diario del Paso, you are then an employee of El Diario del Paso, true?
Para que quede claro, si usted está recibiendo salario del Diario del Paso, usted es un empleado del Diario del Paso, ¿cierto?
Pues sí, el Diario del Paso me paga un salario que le cobra a Juárez. Eso es nada más para yo poder, pues poderme jubilar con el tiempo. Nunca se sabe tener un ingreso en Estados Unidos. Pero empleado,
yes. El Diario del Paso pays me and they charge Juarez for that. But yes, this is just so I can have an option to retire someday and possibly have income here in the United States, but I'm not an employee.
How much do you get paid by El Diario del Paso?
¿Cuánto le paga a usted el Diario del Paso?
Como el 30% de mis ingresos.
About 30% of my income.
What would that be?
¿Y eso cuánto es?
Do I have to, tengo que contestar eso?
Yeah, what is the relevance of his salary
Déjeme,
for jurisdiction purposes?
déjeme le digo, pues, ¿por qué no me gusta contestar eso? Una de las razones por las que vivimos en Estados Unidos, ¿sí? Es porque traemos escoltas en México. Estamos en una empresa de mucho peligro. Los periodistas están siempre amenazados. Entonces, hablarle de lo que gano, pues creo que mi postura no queda peligrosa. Es la única razón por la que no me gustaría hablar de mis ingresos.
Let me tell you, Judge, why I wouldn't want to disclose that. I work in a field where, you know, in Juarez, journalists are always threatened, and that is one of the reasons why we live in El Paso, and that is one of the reasons that I would not like to disclose that.
Mr. Ortega, what is the purpose? I mean, just tell me what's the importance of that,
Judge,
that question?
yes, the reason for it is because he's stating that he's receiving a salary here and he's getting that salary reimbursed by a Mexican entity. They testified that there's only one or two employees that El Diario de Juarez has in El Paso. I'm trying to see if there's other employees besides him that have a similar arrangement.
He can ask that question if someone else has that arrangement.
Hold on, Mr. Davis. So it's important to you.
It is.
Okay. Why don't you just respond, Mr. Davis, and by way of correspondence, and, you know, I don't know how you're going to use it. I have no idea. But this is, hold on just a second. This is on YouTube. So, you know, others can be listening. Just share it between the lawyers. And if it's important, we can take up this issue at the time of trial, whether it's before me or some other judge. Okay.
That works for me, Judge. Mr. Rodriguez, you indicated that 30% of the income or wages that you receive from El Diario del Paso are reimbursed by a Mexican entity. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. I'm sorry. Perdón. Sí, es correcto. Sí, es correcto.
Yes, it's correct.
Who from Juarez is reimbursing El Diario del Paso for the wages that you receive from El Diario del Paso?
Arturo,
Go ahead.
This
Madam
is the
Interpreter.
interpreter, Judge. If he
Yes,
does not
yes.
need my services, I'll
Well,
be
I don't know that.
gladly stay aside.
I don't know that. Mr. Davis says that he does, but so go ahead and interpret.
Then may I instruct the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
The
ma'am.
interpreter. Thank you, Judge. Señor Rodríguez, le solicito por favor que si necesita la interpretación, con gusto se la doy. Nada más le pido que me permita hacerla antes de responder, por favor.
Claro que sí, perdón.
Gracias. This is the interpreter, Mr. Ortega. Can you repeat that last question, please?
Absolutely. What company is responsible for reimbursing El Diario del Paso for the wages that El Diario del Paso pays you for services that you perform in El Paso for that company?
¿Cuál es la compañía que es la responsable de reembolsar el Diario del Paso por los ingresos que le paga a usted para los servicios que usted hace para esa compañía?
La empresa Paso del Norte, Publicaciones e Impresos Paso del Norte SADCB.
It's Publicaciones e Impresos Paso del Norte SADCB.
The reason why you're receiving a reimbursement for the services that you're performing in El Paso from El Diario de Juarez is because you're performing some services for El Diario de Juarez in El Paso, true?
Y la razón por la que está recibiendo el reembolso de los servicios de parte del Diario de Juárez es porque usted está también dando unos servicios a el Diario de Juárez en El Paso, ¿correcto?
No, no es correcto.
No, that is not correct.
So I understand that you said that it's because of a tax issue, that's the reason then that you're receiving reimbursement for the wages paid to you by El Diario del Paso from El Diario de Juárez.
Entonces tengo entendido que usted indicó que era por motivos de impuestos, que es la razón por la que le reembolsan los ingresos del Diario de El Paso de parte del Diario de Juárez.
Déjame le explico. La razón por la que yo recibo ese 30% de la empresa del Paso es porque yo quiero tener un retiro y quiero en mi declaración de impuestos tener un ingreso no nomás de Estados Unidos, no nomás de México, que es el 70% de mis ingresos, pero en mi participación en la oficina del Paso es nula. Es una cosa, es un arreglo de familia.
Let me explain something. The 30% of my income that I receive from El Diario del Paso, it's there because I want to be able to retire at some point and to file my taxes. And I receive my 70% of my income, and just so I don't file my full income from Mexico, just 70%. And my participation in El Diario de Juárez is non-existent. It's just a family matter.
That is a benefit that you receive from your father as the majority shareholder of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Y ese es un beneficio que usted recibe de su padre, quien es el accionista principal del Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
Sí, es correcto.
Yes, that is correct.
I believe you also testified that you're an American citizen, correct?
Creo que usted también declaró que usted es un ciudadano estadounidense, ¿correcto?
Sí, es correcto.
Yes, that is correct.
Gerardo Rodriguez is your brother?
Gerardo Rodríguez es su hermano?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
He's a shareholder of El Diario de Juárez?
¿Y él es un accionista del Diario de Juárez?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
He's a resident of El Paso?
¿Él es residente de El Paso?
Correcto.
Correct.
To your knowledge, is Gerardo Rodriguez a U.S. citizen?
Y hasta donde usted sabe, Gerardo Rodríguez es ciudadano estadounidense.
Es residente de Estados Unidos.
He is a U.S. resident.
To your knowledge, how long has he been a resident in El Paso?
¿Durante cuánto tiempo él ha sido residente del Paso?
No, no estoy seguro.
I'm not sure of that.
Adrián Rodriguez is another sibling of yours?
¿Adrián Rodríguez es otro hermano suyo?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Adrián Rodriguez is also a shareholder of El Diario de Juárez, correct?
Adrián Rodríguez también es accionista del Diario de Juárez, ¿correcto?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Adrián Rodriguez is also a shareholder of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Adrián Rodríguez también es accionista del Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
¿Es correcto?
That's correct.
Adrián Rodriguez, like you, is an employee of El Diario del Paso, correct?
Y Adrián Rodríguez, como usted, también es un empleado del Diario del Paso, ¿correcto?
No como yo. Ya le dije que yo no participo en las divisiones del Paso. Él sí es un empleado que trabaja únicamente en el Diario del Paso, no en las empresas de México.
Not like me, like you said, my participation is non-existent in El Diario del Paso. He is an employee and he only works on the side of El Diario del Paso.
So you say that your involvement is quote unquote non-existent in el Diario del Paso, but you still receive a salary from them regardless, true?
Entonces usted dice que su involucramiento es, entre comillas, nulo, pero aún así recibe su salario del Diario del Paso, ¿cierto?
Con todo respeto, le voy a volver a explicar por tercera vez. El ingreso que yo recibo en el Paso es un arreglo familiar para yo poder tener más adelante un retiro y que me ayude en mi declaración de impuestos. Exclusivamente, yo no tengo ninguna injerencia, ninguna participación y no tengo ningún puesto en el Diario del Paso o la empresa americana.
Respectfully, I would like to explain it a third time. It's because of a family arrangement, and in order to help me when I file my taxes, it's just for taxes purposes only. And I have no participation, no position in El Diario del Paso.
Understood. To your knowledge, is Adrián Rodríguez a resident of El Paso County?
Entendido. Y hasta donde usted sabe, Adrián Rodríguez es residente de El Paso.
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
Is Adrián Rodríguez a U.S. citizen?
Adrián Rodríguez es ciudadano estadounidense.
Es residente.
He's a resident.
To your knowledge, Mr. Rodríguez, how long has Adrián Rodríguez been a resident of El Paso County?
Hasta donde usted sabe, señor Rodríguez, ¿durante cuánto tiempo es que Adrián Rodríguez ha sido residente del Condado del Paso?
No recuerdo, no tengo la fecha exacta.
I don't remember. I don't have the exact date.
Okay, hold on. To me, a resident is an LPR, lawful permanent resident. A U.S. citizen is different. Okay, so let's make a differentiation between the two. One is a U.S. citizen, naturalized or born here. The other is a lawful permanent resident, just has a green card. That's it. So
Understood. And just for clarity, I'm asking about domicile when I ask questions about residency. Mr. Rodriguez, in 1982, El Diario de Juarez opened a sales and circulation office in El Paso, correct?
This is the interpreter. Can you repeat that year, please?
Sure, 1982.
Okay. Y nada más quiero aclarar que cuando hablo acerca de residencia me refiero al domicilio en sí. Otra pregunta, señor Rodríguez, en... This is the
1982.
interpreter. I'm sorry, this is the interpreter. Can you repeat that question, please?
Not a problem. In 1982, El Diario de Juarez opened a sales and circulation office in El Paso County. Is that correct?
Okay. Entonces, el Diario de El Paso abrió la circulación y del periódico del diario en El Paso en 1982, ¿correcto?
Creo que entendí más la pregunta en inglés. Me pregunta usted que si el Diario de Juárez abrió una oficina para venta y distribución del periódico en El Paso en 1982.
I might have understood the question incorrectly. Are you asking me if El Diario de Juárez opened an office for sales and distribution in El Paso in 1982?
That's correct.
Es correcto.
No tengo la fecha exacta, no sé si fue en 82, 83, no recuerdo, pero sí es correcto. El Diario de Juárez abrió una oficina para venta de publicidad y venta de diarios de Juárez en El Paso, en aquel entonces.
I don't have the exact date. I don't remember if it was 82 or 83, but El Diario de Juárez did open an office for sales, for advertising, and for El Diario in El Paso.
Do you know specifically where this sales and circulation office was located in El Paso?
¿Sabe exactamente en dónde se ubicaba esta oficina para ventas y distribución en El Paso?
Yo no trabajaba todavía en el periódico. Me acuerdo que en aquel entonces un tío mío, que se llama Sergio Rodríguez Borunda, era el encargado de esa oficina. Y estaba la oficina ya por entre la McRae y Yarborough, en el lado del freeway.
I didn't work at the newspaper yet. I do remember that an uncle, his name's Sergio Rodriguez Borunda, he was in charge of the office, and it was located at McRae and Yarborough on the side of the freeway.
Do you know, Mr. Rodriguez, if at that time that El Diario de Juarez had a sales and circulation office in El Paso, if that newspaper hired employees from El Paso?
¿Sabe, señor Rodríguez, y en ese entonces, cuando estaba la oficina de venta y distribución, que si esa oficina contrataba empleados en El Paso?
Sí, por sentido común, siendo una oficina de venta y de distribución de periódicos, tuvo que haber tenido empleados, pues, más que nada de ventas de publicidad y de distribución de periódicos.
Yes, by common sense, being an office for sales and circulation, it must have had employees mostly for the sales of advertising and for the circulation of the paper.
You would imagine that that newspaper would also have at least one bank account and be responsible for paying any taxes that it was due in this state, correct?
Y pues me imagino que entonces el periódico también tendría por lo menos una cuenta de banco para encargarse de los pagos y también de los pagos de impuestos en el estado, ¿correcto?
No estoy seguro, pero imagino que sí.
Not sure, but I imagine so.
Do you know how long El Diario de Juarez had that sales and circulation office in El Paso?
¿Sabe durante cuánto tiempo el Diario de Juárez tenía esa oficina de venta y distribución en El Paso?
Pues usted me dijo desde 1982. Yo no trabajaba aquí. Perdón, no
Well, you
puedo.
told me 1982. I didn't work there.
Understood. For how long, to your knowledge, did El Diario de Juarez have a circulation office in El Paso?
Lo entiendo. Entonces, hasta donde usted sabe, ¿durante cuánto tiempo es que el Diario de Juárez tenía una oficina de distribución en El Paso?
Mire, yo entré en El Paso en 1995 y la oficina que me tocó atender a mí está ubicada en la calle Industrial ahí, y Hawkins. Ahí es donde yo empecé en la empresa. Entonces, lo que usted me pregunta atrás de eso, no le puedo responder con exactitud.
I started in El Paso in 1995, and the office was located in an industrial and Hawkins. But the questions that you're asking, I can't answer precisely.
Would it be fair to say that the reason why there was a circulation and sales office in El Paso by El Diario de Juarez was to target El Paso readers?
Sería justo decir que la razón por la que había una oficina de distribución y ventas en El Paso por el Diario de Juárez era para enfocarse en los lectores del Paso.
No, completamente en desacuerdo. La razón por la que existía la oficina del Paso era para atender a las empresas americanas que querían traer el mercado de México, Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, y anunciarse en el Diario de Juárez en aquel entonces. Obviamente, las personas...
Un momentito, señor, un momentito.
Yes.
Gracias. No, I completely disagree with that. The reason it existed, it was to service American agencies who wanted to bring open the market to the population in Mexico.
Cuentas importantes de publicidad en aquel entonces como Dealers, JCPenney, Toys R Us, Kohl's, entre otras.
Important advertising accounts back then were Dillard's, JCPenney, Toys R Us, Kohl's, amongst others.
Those companies that you mentioned were companies, I suppose, that would contract with El Diario de Juárez to provide advertising, correct?
Y esas compañías que usted mencionó, supongo que eran compañías que tenían un contrato con el Diario de Juárez para la publicación, ¿correcto?
Incorrecto. siempre existió una oficina de Paso que en aquel entonces no imprimía un periódico, era una agencia de publicidad y de distribución de periódicos y tenía, eso era una empresa americana con empleados americanos, agentes de ventas que atendían esas cuentas y luego existía un contrato entre esa agencia y el periódico de Juárez.
Those companies would have a contract with El Paso. They would the office in El Paso was the advertising agency, and they had it was an U.S. agency, U.S. employees, sales agents, and they would set up the contracts with the this is an interpreter, Judge. I honestly exhausted. I can't keep up anymore. It's been
You need a break?
a few
or will you
hours all
be-
day.
Will you be able to come back or not?
I'm sure somebody else can. I mean,
No, why don't you?
it is on
why
our
no.
guidelines that
Why don't you
after-
find out? Okay, well, let's find
Sure.
out, okay? Because I need an interpreter. I need to continue this deposition.
yes,
So-
Judge. We're not supposed to keep going so long. So,
All right.
and this is per our guidelines, ethical guidelines.
Okay,
So,
all right. We're going to have to find out if we can get another interpreter, okay? So call your office because we need one. And Mr. Ortega, there may be a possibility that we can't get someone, okay? So it's after 12. Who do we call in your office? Do you have a number?
is this the same one? Or are you? This is interpreter. Are you asking me, Judge?
Yes, Ana Luz,
Yes, Judge.
can we call the office because there's a possibility that Ms. Garza may not be able to come back?
Yes, I'll get with Luis, which is the person that I speak to get an interpreter and see if he can find someone else.
Okay, then let's do that, right? Let's break for lunch, be back, say about 10 of 1. All right? Okay,
Yes, Judge.
if you can come back, Ms. Garza, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you.